Yeah, we're off. Bye, guys. Let's do Mike first.
Are you serious? Are you serious, guys? We're going live on Sunday night, live. And I'm going live 15 minutes early because I've got so much to cover. I need an extra 15 minutes I can't keep up with it all. It's
Hey, Diane.
so
Hi, Tricky. Good to see you guys.
Over my shoulder it might be the main reason we have to accelerate these broadcasts. We're living, guys. Seriously, we are living in the last days, no doubt about that. So get a cup of coffee, calm down, get yourself ready, because this is the coming apocalypse. Also, let me tell you real quick, to put a shout out right now for www.noblegoldinvestment.com. That's www.noblegoldinvestment.com. Guys, well, gold is already a safety net for your hard earned.
Okay, let's see if we can just jump the mic.
A lot of people underneath the roof. Okay, just thank God for that. Still, a very serious situation developed there in.
He's the super villain, the Wasp. Okay, you got Mike.
You got the mic. Right. Still.
Hi, Han. Thanks for the tip that Paul Begley was live with Mike from around the world. Thank
Columbus,
you.
Ohio, there at Ohio State University, and we, again, sometimes the young people just don't calculate it all, and we don't criticize them because we were young once ourselves. Are you serious, guys? Mike from around the world. Let me just tell you something. We're talking about volcanoes. We're talking about
6 missiles, Diane. Yeah, supersonic missiles. You're right. And one of them struck a bunker that killed hundreds of NATO officers.
Severe weather.
It was on redacted.
I have a report. The tent had suffered damage.
Hey, Bars, good to see you, mate.
This week on Wednesday night.
I got your Super Soldier link up to do after Mike from around the world. I haven't watched it, so we'll give it a go and see how genuine he is, Vast. But I'm interested.
A storm came blowing in here. Then Saturday, some more storms come blowing in, and the people worked feverishly to repair and clean up. One of the main big television screens was grabbed and thrown like a frisbee and crashed. We got a new one, got it up, everything ready to go. But today, and Pastor Melvin's message was, there's a storm coming. I had done a video earlier in the week on Tuesday during a rainstorm saying there's a storm coming, and it's not just one behind me, but it's the storm of the coming of the Lord. When it says, the Bible says,
yeah, Diane, I saw it on Red Pill or Redacted just before I come on live. That's what I was watching before I went live. Yeah, it's just happened. Yeah.
Then it's going to be a day of darkness, of gloominess, of thick darkness. The Bible says that every island and mountain will be moved out of its place. The Bible tells us, can you imagine this? That the earth is going to shake and quake, and it's going to reel and rock like a
pole shift.
And the Bible says that there will be blood and fire and pillars of smoke, and the sun will be darkened and the moon will turn to blood before the.
Okay, Bas, one of them links, one of them was Super Soldier Talk, and that looked like not a big channel, but the other one, that looks like an organised channel, like someone worried about copyright there.
Great.
The AUMN one, I think that was it.
Terrible day of the Lord comes before the great and terrible day of the Lord.
Hypersonic is a missile that goes so fast it can't be shot out of the sky. There's no defense on a supersonic missile, and Russia's got the most. I don't even think the Americans have got supersonic missiles.
Come. Think about that one. And then the Bible also says that when Christ comes, that every eye shall behold him. Every knee is going to bow. Every tongue is going to confess that he is the King of kings and the Lord of lords. So I'm here to tell you, the storm is coming. The storm is coming. And we need to be ready. You need to be ready.
Amen.
For in an hour you think not the Son of Man will come. He said, watch and pray. For an hour you think not the Son of Man cometh. He also said, pray that you be worthy to escape the hour of temptation that's coming upon the earth. Now, we know the earth is going to have a violent reaction and no doubt Planet X has a key component in that. Let's go back and hear what Mike from around the world had to say about Planet X and the events getting ready to happen to the earth. Let's go there now.
Last, before we do that, yesterday on Israeli News Live, I don't think you were here, but the whistleblower on Planet X says it goes in and out the ether. So you were correct. It goes in and out of dimensions. So I played something yesterday to back that up.
The oceans are driving a huge problem. A huge problem. All right, I found your article here. Earth and hot water worries over sudden ocean warming spike. The world's oceans have suddenly spiked much hotter and are well above record levels in the last few weeks. The scientists are trying to figure out what it means and whether the forecast a surge in atmospheric warming. Some researchers think the jump in the sea surface temperature stems from the brewing and possibly strong natural El Nino warming weather conditions, plus a rebound from 3 years of cooling La Nina. But that's not what it is it, Mike? No, they have, of course, they're going to print what they print to support global warming, you gather mind.
Right.
It's going to be political. And NOAA, of course, is going to print anything that will keep that agency validity going. But the truth is, we have an unprecedented amount of volcanoes erupting in the oceans. We have underwater war activity, I guess you could say, which is not helping the matter.
Wow, look at that.
Condensed atmospheric issue that we continue to have. The sun is about to go into a new phase, a brand new phase. It's going to be highly unpredictable. And of course, all these external things out there, beyond our solar system, they're playing a lot of, they're introducing particulates into our solar system. So things are changing rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, and let's talk about this binary system, okay? Planet X. And I promised people we would ask you about an update on that. I did see the solar eclipse we just had. That they were hoping that when that solar eclipse happened, that they would be able to see this binary system coming up the backside and maybe see over on the edges of the sun with the naked eye, but they couldn't see with the naked eye. But I was going to ask you, did we look at it with the infrared? Did we get a look at this thing, and what did we see?
Well, if something was out there, they can always see it. The problem with the eclipse is that we're at the wrong angle, so we wouldn't have got a clear look at it based on the position of Earth and the sun. That's how we would see it with an eclipse. Of course, it would block all that light out and show a pretty lit object behind there. But we're at the wrong angle. Give it about 3 or 4 months. If that happens again, which it likely will, then people may get a good visual of that. Plus, the time of day is a big factor. But if they don't get to see it, that's not a problem, because we're about to have some new phases introduced into our weather patterns, right?
Yeah.
We're going to have to deal with the high winds. With the high winds comes a dryness, comes very different types of storms, and some of the particulates that are now settling in the atmosphere are going to hit their fall point, which means once they build up to a specific point, they begin to fall to Earth. And once they fall to Earth, that's going to be a bigger driver. As the density of the upper atmospheres increases, aircraft are going to be forced to lower and lower altitudes. They already have St. Elmo's fire, right, that they have to go through
due to friction and other things, if that increases, well, they're going to, lots of things will change. Here's the bad part. It's going to happen so quick. And we're going to have very little indication. The things will not overtake us. It's going to happen very quick. Any binary system, the closer they get together, right, they arc. Inertia increases, speed doubles. So it's almost an exponential speed increase from that binary star coming into our star. Now, our star moves also, right? So at a certain point, both start moving towards each other, right? At that point, things will be moving so fast in space that the constellations are going to be wrong. People are going to lose track of that. I wouldn't be surprised if we go through more than one. We'll probably have a trio of wobbles. Meaning, you may.
We're gonna play more from Mike in just a moment here. But I want to stop a minute. He starts talking about those. The Earth is going to wobble. Now that is actually in your Bible. If you go to the book of Isaiah, the 24th chapter, it talks about the Earth is going to reel and rock like a drunkard. It even says the Earth is going to flip upside down in Isaiah 24:1. So what we're having here and what he's talking about, what he's talking about, of course, is the fact that the Earth is under severe pressure, and the Earth is going to move out of its current orbit, which is really crazy when you think about it. But I can tell you this, it's getting crazier. Isaiah 24 talks about a pole shift. Isaiah 24 talks about the earth reeling and rocking like a drunkard. It talks about sounds heard in the heavens and the earth. And also the Bible in the book of Joel tells us that there will be blood and fire and pillars of smoke. The sun will be darkened and the moon will turn to blood. Now we talk about those dark black clouds that were over top of Turkey. Now you're looking at a picture right there. That's Colombia. That is Colombia, and it's expected to get extremely dangerous. This thing is about ready to blow. And you heard Mike say volcanoes. There's 19,000 volcanoes. So many of them are under the ocean, and they are telling these folks, look, you got to get out of there.
19,000 volcanoes. Wow. Not 1,900, 19,000.
You got to get out of there because it's about ready to blow like it did in 1985. And this isn't the only volcano that we're worried about. There's also some indication that Mount Vesuvius in Italy is starting to shake. There's also, we know that Yellowstone keeps doing weird things. We know the Cascadia subduction zone along the up in the northwest corner of the United States, from Vancouver down to northern, almost down to Eureka, California. That whole coast is a ticking time bomb. So is the San Andreas fault line, and so is the areas and way down in San Diego, and some of it under the Los Angeles, and some of it up in San Francisco. We know these areas are ticking time bombs ready to go. And then there's the New Madrid fault line, which, my Lord, it's been over 211 years since those two mega earthquakes hit back in 1811 and 1812, which reshaped the Mississippi River. And then they're all over the globe. The volcanoes in Tonga, the entire Alaska, that entire Aleutian Islands. Some of the volcanoes, there's tons of them in Japan that are dangerous, and in Indonesia, and the Philippines, and Fiji, and it goes on. As a matter of fact, let me just take a look at the earthquake report right now. I know Fiji had a 6.6 earthquake yesterday. In the last 24 hours, I'll just give you the bigger ones, but 4.5 Tonga, 4.1 Afghanistan, 4.4 Turkmenistan, 4.3 Russia, 4.6 Papua New Guinea, 4.2 Nicaragua, 4.4 Peru, 4.5 Indonesia, 4.7 the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Also, there was some shaking in Heber, California, several quakes. A 3.0, also that volcano over there in Hawaii. 2.6 Alaska, 4.4 the Philippines, 4.6 Venezuela, 3.1 New Mexico, 3.4 Octillo Wells, California, 4.6 Fiji, 4.6 Myanmar, 4.5 Nealon, California, 4.5 earthquake today, very shallow, only 2 kilometers deep in Nealon, California, followed by a 4.3, followed by a 2.9, followed by a 2.9, followed by a 3.1, followed by a 4.3, then a 3.0, all in Nealon, California. All of them right at the surface between 1 and 2 kilometers. A whole lot of shaking right on that fault line that Mike said is going to go and cause San Diego to tilt up and slide into the ocean. That's why I'm going to be preaching in San Diego, California on June the 9th, Friday night, June the 9th, along with my buddy L.A. Marzulli. And you're not going to miss it because it's going to be part of our webinar that night. Our next webinar called Supernatural Intelligence will be that night, Friday night, June the 9th. There'll be a bunch of speakers already pre-recorded for you, and L.A. Marzulli and myself will be speaking live from San Diego, California, and you can be. We've actually rented a room there for you, so I think it seats 500. I was going to rent one to seat 200, but it ended up getting a price so good that we got one for it would seat 500 if people want to come. That's if you're brave enough to handle the shaking going on down there in San Diego. Are you serious? So anyway, there's a lot. We'll tell you more about that. The tickets will be going on sale soon for that webinar, Supernatural Intelligence. This is going to be good. This is going to be really good. Mike Around the World's going to be in that one. Doug Hagman's going to be in that one. A Navajo Native American who's been born again is going to reveal the secrets of the Skinwalker to you, what the Skinwalkers are in that one, and a whole lot more. So I'll tell you more about all of this. It's going to be an amazing webinar. We'll get that up on our website here very quickly for you, okay? All right. Now, so yeah, no fluffy puppy preaching here, folks. Come on now, no drama queens here. It's about the end of the world that's coming. Let's go back to Mike from around the world. Let's hear what else he had to say in this powerful conversation that we're having about Planet X and what it's going to do to the planet.
Rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, and let's talk about this binary system, okay? Planet X. And I promised people we would ask you about an update on that. I did see the solar eclipse we just had. That they were hoping that when that solar eclipse
Can't hear.
that they would be able to see.
He always gets the audio wrong, God bless him.
Coming up the backside, maybe see it on the edges of the sun with the naked eye, but he couldn't see with the naked eye. But I was going to ask you, did we look at it with the infrared? Did we get a look at this thing, and what did we see?
Well, if something was out there, they can always see it. The problem with the eclipse is that we're at the wrong angle, so we wouldn't have got a clear look at it based on the position of Earth and the sun. That's how we would see it with an eclipse. Of course, it would block all that light out and show a pretty lit object behind there, but we're at the wrong angle. Give it about 3 or 4 months. If that happens again, which it likely will, then people may get a good visual of that. Plus, the time of day is a big factor. But if they don't get to see it, that's not a problem, because we're about to have some new phases introduced into our weather pattern.
What?
Right?
Yeah.
We're going to have to deal with the high winds. With the high winds comes a dryness, comes very different types of storms, and some of the particulates that are now settling in the atmosphere are going to hit their fall point, which means once they build up to a specific point, they begin to fall to Earth. And once they fall to Earth, that's going to be a bigger driver. As the density of the upper atmospheres increases, aircraft are going to be forced to lower and lower altitudes. They already have St. Elmo's fire, right, that they have to go through due to friction and other things. If that increases, well, they're going to, lots of things will change. Here's the bad part. It's going to happen so quick. And we're going to have very little indication that things are about to overtake us. It's going to happen very quick. Any binary system, the closer they get together, right, they arc. Inertia increases, speed doubles. So it's almost an exponential speed increase from that binary star coming into our star. Now, our star moves also, right? So at a certain point, both start moving towards each other, right? At that point, things will be moving so fast in space that the constellations are going to be wrong. People are going to lose track of that. I wouldn't be surprised if we go through more than one moon. We'll probably have a trio of wobbles, meaning you may see the sun in the sky likely at 10 o'clock one day, at the 10 o'clock position, but within about a 30-minute period, the sun may go all the way to a 2 o'clock position and back to that 10 o'clock position. All of this happening within a half hour.
What? Wait,
so I wouldn't be surprised.
Are you serious?
And you're looking at not just one time, but multiple times. We're going to see the sun out of position. Also in the nighttime, we will likely see at the nighttime the Earth doing more wobbles, right, to where we see the moon. And then, of course, everybody sees the sun. It'll light up like it's daytime. Then quickly go back to the moon. Now, the only thing that's going to hold us together is the sheer force of the gravitational element, I'm going to call it. And so we're in a pretty good sphere, Earth is, that will hold us to the ground, but we will see the heavens start to alter like that. But we will have no warning. Once this really hits that peak point, it'll go from a day just like today to horrific, to horrible. Right? And as far as a warning is concerned, well, everybody's looking for warning and trying to find these big indicators. They're not going to get the big indicators.
They're not going to get a warning. We're not going to get the big indicators. We're not going to get the big indicators. We're not going to get the warning, Mike said. We're going to hear more from Mike as we go on tonight, but we're not. So think this through, guys. Think this through. Planet X moving in position. It's going to start causing the Earth to wobble. It's going to start causing it to reel and rock like a drunkard, as it says in Isaiah. Also, the heavens are going to roll back like a scroll, like it says in the book of Zechariah. Also, the sky is going to be darkened. The stars and the sun and the moon are turned to red, like it says in the book of Joel in chapter 2 and in chapter 3, as the earth will be black and darkness and thick darkness, okay, and gloominess, and a day of terror. But we're not going to get any warning on this. You're getting the warning right now.
True.
You're getting the warning right now.
Yep.
Today. Today is the day. And so, you know, it's time that people prepare.
Okay, I don't think Mike's actually going live today. He's just rehashing Friday's one. I'll keep doing it though, because things have happened since then. But I don't think Mike's live. So yeah.
For the coming of the Lord, we're gonna hear from Mike a little bit more on this subject in just a moment. But first, we got more to talk about here. I mean, yes, the Columbia earthquake is big. As we said, the rooftop collapsed over last night over at Ohio State. Pray for those kids. Thank God none of them were killed, but some of them are hurt pretty seriously. So there's a lot going on there. But also, guys, 3 soldiers are dead. 1 more is severely injured in a midair Army helicopter collision. This one was really bad. This is the second helicopter collision in the Army here in the last month. This one taking place in Alaska. The other one was in Kentucky. Two U.S. Army helicopters collided and crashed on Thursday in Alaska while returning from a training flight, killing 3 soldiers and injuring a 4th. 2 of the soldiers died at the scene of the crash there in
No. I was going to do a joke, but I better not.
Healy, Alaska, and the 3rd one died on the way to the hospital to Fairbanks, according to the Army. And the 4th soldier is being treated at a hospital with severe injuries. The names of those killed have been withheld, but we can tell you that these were 2, again, AH-64 Apache helicopters. 2 helicopters colliding with each other on training exercises. And it is believed to be operator error. Of course, this is what happens when you're training in combat, as if it's a combat situation.
No, I was going to crack a joke about them guys dying from wasp stings, but I thought I better not.
And you have to give these guys the training, or they're not going to be able to perform if they're in a real battlefield situation. So our hearts go out to the families. It's a tragic, another tragic situation developed. Pray for the families of these young soldiers who've lost their lives in Alaska. Also, I want you to pray because there is definitely a demon and demons loose. There's no question about it. We have a man down in Texas, down in Cleveland, Texas, who carried out, and this guy right here, who carried out an execution style murder, slaughtering 5 of his neighbors by shooting them all in the head, including one of them was an 8-year-old boy.
Wow.
According to the report, the man accused of this 5 execution style murder in Texas was triggered. They said the neighbors said he was out in his front yard shooting his gun close to midnight when one of the neighbors walked over and said, "Could you please calm it down? You know, we got a little baby in here. We're trying to put this little baby to sleep." You know, it was almost midnight. The guy's whooping and hollering out there. He's drunk with a gun, shooting it in the air. This guy said, "Nobody tells me what to do." And a few minutes later, he came over to the man's house and shot 3 females.
I'll bet you guys that this guy was on meth. I bet he was on meth.
And 2 males, one including an 8-year-old boy, killing all 5 of them execution style. Wow. And leaving 3 other children there covered in blood.
Oh, did he?
The mothers, the 2 of the female victims had tried to shelter and shield the children from this guy. He shot both those women in the head anyway, and their blood soaked the children beneath their bodies. Now, this is a horrific, this is demonic as it gets. This is demonic as it gets. This guy is still loose. This guy is still loose. They have recovered the gun. So he threw the gun down, left it at the scene. Everybody knows who he is. His name is Francisco Oropeza. He's right over my shoulder there. If anybody sees him, please notify don't try to deal with him on your own. Notify the authorities down there in Texas, or he may be in Mexico. But let's get this guy off the streets. You know, there's a demon loose, and he has to be dealt with. Okay, he has to be dealt with. And you know, my wife and I were talking yesterday and again this morning, I think it was, that so many times people are so quick to say who's possessed, and a lot of times what they do is they decide that the victim or the innocent person who was abused or attacked, some Christians will try to identify and diagnose them having a demon and that they need deliverance. Are you serious?
Oh,
They don't need deliverance.
I'd never heard that before. But the victims, oh man, that was a silly comment. The Christians, the victims are getting blamed by the Christians. That's ridiculous. Okay, let's go a bit forward. Let's see if Mike comes back on, or is he just going to talk crap?
The spot doctors and ambulances There's a whole big 50-member team of national disaster response on the site. I've got some more credit. We're going to go. Look, we got Mike around the world. We're going to come back and tell us more that we haven't heard yet tonight. But first, Benjamin Netanyahu tells CNN Israel will remain a robust democracy despite the judiciary plans. He's saying, guys, just because we want to revamp and bring and rein in this radical Supreme Court in Israel, and to create a checks and balance system like America has between the executive, judicial, and legislative branches, which is what we have. Okay. We're going to remain a robust, he said, democracy despite what people think. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told CNN today his country would remain a robust democracy, despite the controversial plans to overhaul the country's judicial system. Amid widespread protests and historic nationwide strikes and mounting international pressure, Netanyahu delayed the votes on the changes, which would have amounted to the most sweeping overhaul of Israeli legal system since the country was founded 75 years ago. Remember, Israel is an infant.
Gold-plated was.
Very infant. With Israeli parliament starting its summer session today, the proposals could be back in play. Netanyahu told CNN's Fareed Zakaria that the weeks of protest were a sign of the robustness of the public debate, which I'm working to resolve with a broad consensus as I can. One thing I guarantee you, Netanyahu said, at the end of this process, Israel, that was a democracy, is a democracy, will always remain a robust democracy. But he indicated that he may be backing away from one of the most controversial aspects of the overhaul, giving the parliament the power to override Supreme Court decisions with a simple majority. I think he should back off of that, because if your legislators can override your Supreme Court, then what good is your Supreme Court? So I think they do have to back off that one. I understand why they're doing it. It's because the Supreme Court is so left-leaning, and the way what they need to do is modify it by this way and say, okay, here's what it is. In our country, the president nominates a Supreme Court justice. Then the Congress, the Senate, has to confirm that nominee. And if the Senate doesn't confirm them, they don't go to the Supreme Court. But once they're on the Supreme Court, they're there for life. Now, in Israel, it's this way. The Supreme Court justices are there for life, and unless they're ready to retire, or they're elderly, or they're sick, then they can pick their...
Yeah, Bas, I do remember that. And that actually hit our news that Justin Bieber turned, because that happened at Hillsong, Australia, and he turned reptilian, and they done it on the news, and they done it like Justin Bieber was doing a joke, but it wasn't a joke. He turned into a reptilian. You're exactly right, Bas. It even made our news.
Own replacement. The prime minister or president have no jurisdiction. The Knesset has no vote on it. So what's happened over 75 years, these 15 Supreme Court justices have just picked their own replacements over 75 years. So you can imagine what you've got. You've got a incestuous Supreme Court, meaning it is completely made up of just a handful of people with no input from the rest of society, and they just keep choosing their own people, which means it went completely. It's set up completely left leaning, and thus it stifles a lot of the legislation that the Knesset tries to get done. So they need to work on the selection process. Don't override it, but the selection process needs to be more open, similar to ours. That's what I would recommend. Now, ours is far from perfect, believe me. But there is no government on this planet that's perfect. Did you know that? The Bible even says that. The only kingdom that will have everlasting dominion, that will last forever,
It's
is
Christ.
the millennial reign kingdom of Jesus Christ that will last 1,000 years, only to set up for eternity, and a kingdom without no end. That's the only one. Okay. Israel also, meanwhile, are hitting locations in Syria as we speak. This weekend, suspected Israeli airstrikes were targeting Syrian locations early Saturday over in Homs and other areas around Damascus, where there are Syrian and Iranian and Lebanese militant groups like Hezbollah who seem to be around setting up shop in Syria. These were Hezbollah around the military airport outside of Homs in Syria. So what Israel's doing, they continue to put the pressure on these locations where military forces are building up and where Iran is smuggling sophisticated missiles and weaponry into the Middle East. And Russia's helping them. Russia's helping them by trying to create air cover for some of the locations over in Syria.
Yeah.
So it's really the Iranian. And guess what, guys? Just this last week, listen who had it.
Actually, Vast, I didn't pick up that Paul Begley done that. Who was it yesterday? Israeli Ben Ganoon. He said that he's full-on Zionist, and I never picked that up before, but he's right. He is a Zionist.
Meaning Russia, Turkey, Syria, and Iran. Russia, Turkey, Syria, and Iran. Ezekiel 38. Unbelievable. They were meeting on how to deal with Israel. And so we are living in the last days. Oh, by the way, I want to throw this out there for you. Did you know that the secret Russian UFO program said they have contacted aliens and that the aliens have beamed back pictures? What? Remote viewing used in Russia during a secret UFO program saw ordinary people seemingly giving superhuman abilities, and it is even claimed that they managed to contact aliens. Scientists in the former Soviet Russia claim to have tapped into cosmic intelligence from aliens using psychic abilities. The American journalist and alien euthanist George Knapp said he witnessed remote viewing during a visit to Russia back in the 1990s to investigate their alien research program. Appearing on the Weaponized podcast with investigative filmmaker Jeremy Corbell, Mr. Knapp said he first went to Russia to in pursuit of information about the extraterrestrial life forms. What? But when he came across scientists where they had reverse engineered alien technology. They have this gigantic UFO study that goes on for 10 years, and then another one replaces it, and they're trying to figure out how do we duplicate fallen angel or alien technology. The award-winning journalist met with Lieutenant General Saban, who wanted to share the impressive research he performed with the public. He had developed, in essence, a remote viewing. He showed us some training films where they would take a Russian sailor, put him down in the bottom of a ship, and then ask him to identify where other naval assets were around it without being able to look out a window. And he could see it. And they were really accurate, incredibly accurate, at least in the film. So this is the guy who went to Russia, and he's been meeting with the Russians about their UFO program and has been doing that really for the last 30 years. That's George Knapp. Russia says that they beamed back a picture. I'm trying to see. I thought I had a picture. I thought I had that picture. Give me 1 second to see if I have it. I don't remember if I saved it or did I. Maybe I didn't save it. Yes, I didn't. It was really weird what they said that they seen by the aliens. But look, guys, I think what we're doing is we're tapping into supernatural intelligence. But what is this supernatural intelligence? And actually, that is the name of our next webinar. That we'll be putting it on the website this week. It will be Friday night, June the 9th, Friday night, June the 9th, called Supernatural Intelligence. We're going to deal with demonic entities, paranormal entities, alien or extraterrestrial or alien type entities. We'll be dealing with angelic manifestations. That's the good guys. We'll be dealing with artificial intelligence and other subjects, including skinwalkers. We'll have an eyewitness of skinwalkers who actually knows all about the skinwalkers. A Navajo Native American who's been born again, who is willing to tell all about skinwalkers, what they are. It is a very close to the vest information that's only shared among the Navajos, among themselves. They're not allowed to talk about it. If they do, then they will be targeted by the demons. He is going to explain the entire process to us on this webinar because people need to understand what is skinwalkers and are they real and what exactly are they? And he's going to share it with us. He said, I'm not afraid to share it. And he'll even speak in Navajo, and then he'll speak in English. He said, I'm not afraid to share it because I've been washed in the blood of Jesus Christ. So I'm not afraid of the skinwalkers and the forces that go with it. And you'll learn all about that in this webinar. It's phenomenal. This is groundbreaking information. I can tell you that we're going to have some great speakers in this. L.A. Marzulli, Doug Hagman, this Navajo brother, it's Navajo, Native American, Archbishop from the Vatican, Anthony Schneider, the Archbishop of Kazakhstan, and Bishop Larry Ragland, and more. I've got some more that we haven't. Mike around the world, more. So there's and more. So this is going to be a powerful webinar. It's called Supernatural, and part of it will be live from San Diego, California, on Friday night, the same night. And if you want to be a part of that studio audience, you can. And you can even, there will be, L.A. Marzulli will be speaking, I'll be speaking, and then there will be a panel that you can ask questions to. Anyone and everyone that buys a ticket can submit a question if you want. It's up to you. And of course, we'll go through those and come up with the better ones to ask the questions. We couldn't answer everybody's question, it'd be impossible. But it'll be four of us on the panel. It'll be myself, along with L.A. Marzulli, and Heidi Begley, and Israel Hall. Also, if you're in San Diego, Israel Hall will be providing all the praise and worship. I mean, it's incredible. He'll have his guitar and his saxophone, but he'll also have his entire music soundtracks behind him that he has already recorded, because he can play every instrument. He plays piano, banjo, mandolin, guitar, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, 12-string guitar, harmonica, saxophone, keyboard, drums. So he just did his own. Incredible. Yeah. So he'll be doing praise and worship for us. So all of that will be happening.
It's actually disgusting, isn't it, Diane? Let's see if we can jump ahead for Mike.
And 5 men and heal and restore.
Within crystal, not outside.
Okay, he's back.
Showing us. And let's talk about this. Oh, yes. Incredible.
Today, 2 horrific is concerned, well, everybody's looking for warning and trying to find these big indicators. You're not going to get the big indicators. You just won't get them. It's going to happen too quick. It'll always, in every single observed system, it's always shocking to see when two of these stars get together because the speed is just incredible. That means if even an amateur astronomer saw it in a telescope, it was a small little tiny, purplish red dot, right? Within hours, it would overtake everything. Once you see it, it's too late. And nobody can prepare that fast.
That's a great scripture somebody just reminded us of, and I appreciate that in the chat room. Haggai chapter 2, verse 6 and 7 says, "And thus saith the Lord of hosts, yet once in a little while, and I will shake the heavens, and the earth, and the sea, and the dry land. And I will shake all nations, and the desire of all nations shall come. And I will fill this house with glory, saith the Lord of hosts. The silver is mine, the gold is mine, saith the Lord of hosts. And the glory of this latter house shall be greater than..."
Oh, what a surprise. The silver's mine, the gold is mine.
"The former. And saith the Lord of hosts, and in this place will I give peace, saith the Lord of hosts." He's saying, I will shake the heavens. Now, also in the same chapter, in verse 21, again, he says, I will shake the heavens and the earth. So,
right,
when you said that the sun will literally go back, basically, are we saying the sun is moving out of place, or is the earth moving out of place?
Okay. The earth will be.
Yeah.
The earth is going to be dislodged. It is a known fact that the earth is going to lose its orbit. Wow. It's going to be temporarily jostled quite a bit, but more than once, because every single time, when these things get close, the forces they're just unbelievable. And nobody living alive right now, not even in distant history, can we read about that unless we really, really dig. And then you find small indicators, and I can almost guarantee they didn't get everything, right? And even the Bible confirms a very shocking thing of just how little of a warning people will get. Now, I know people have read Matthew 38 through 41 with a mindset, right? A lot of people get happy reading that, saying, yes, we're out of here. But if everybody would read that, and then keep in mind that people are not going to get a warning, because when the Lord said, like in the days of Noah, right? Especially in 39, he says, and knew not until the flood came.
Right, took them all away.
So shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Well, the coming of the Son of Man, he comes at the same time all this stuff starts breaking loose.
Yes, he does.
And then you read after that, he gives an example. He said, then shall two be in the field, one will be taking the other left. So there's people weren't prepared for that.
No.
They were not prepared. And the one thing that we do see is the abomination of desolation, which brings us back to Israel, right?
Okay, yeah.
And the news is trying not to cover news about Israel, but I believe that's why Christians will know and non-Christians won't care, is because Christians care about the state of Israel.
Amen.
Non-Christians could care less, but we're watching everything very closely. As far as some big obvious sign, I honestly believe God is giving them every single day. It's just not for the world to notice.
Well, they can't. They're blinded. And until you come to Christ, you really can't see. But like you said, the Christians, we keep our eyes open. We're not the children of the night, but we're the children of the light. And our eyes are open. We see things. And so we pick up on it. And God's showing us. And let's talk about Israel. Because do you see... Ron DeSantis was there. He met with Netanyahu. Of course, Biden refused to meet with Netanyahu. It's very interesting. Do you see I know Ron DeSantis is doing things for his own political career, obviously, but at the same time, though, he has always been pro-Israel. So is Trump pro-Israel. Is Israel in danger right now with the current administration?
Well, they're in danger, period. Here's one of my biggest issues is this, Pastor Paul.
Okay.
It's because things will continue for at least another month. I fear it's going to be too late.
Another month?
It's going to be too late.
Wait.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It's going to be too late.
Okay, now last week you said we may hear the rumble, the rumors of war. The war drums, the beating of war.
Right.
Can you expound on that a little bit?
Well, you had that meeting with Turkey, Russia, Syria, and Iran. Right? You have the declarations of the Middle East. You have a new formation started by Jordan and Saudi Arabia dealing with the Islamic kingdoms, right? You have radical groups that have been formed. I say radical, they're actually religious groups that are really, they're taking prophecy seriously now. Not like ISIS, not like these other guys.
Right.
But they are actually identifying things that bring us very close to the time in their case of the Mahdi, right? That character, the Mahdi. Well, there are other things that are happening because Germany and the Vatican have also been looking for indicators of the Mahdi, right? I know people don't know this, but the Vatican covers all of Islamic prophecy very closely. They do that.
Wow.
They do it with Christianity. They do it with Islam also, because they know both have this single.
Go ahead.
But they also identify things in the world that people don't know of, and so they have very good indicators. For example, well, everybody's looking for UFOs and things like that, right? The Vatican understands the origin of the other life forms that are here on Earth and parts of the spiritual realm. One example of parts of the spiritual realm, the Earth within itself likely was some sort of angelic place before humanity ever got here, right? Before we were here, this place was kind of overrun, right? And God did away with it. There was a great destruction, did away with it. They know that because as they dig deeper, one of two things are true. When you go 300 feet below a pyramid, right, and you start finding script that nobody can write, that nobody can understand, that nobody can etch. You can. We're not talking something caved into stone,
right?
It's gold writing within crystals. Who can do that? So something else was going on here.
Whoa.
And when they're digging up
gold
stuff,
writing on crystals
within crystal, not outside, inside the crystal. Gold writing inside the crystal.
They found that stuff underneath the pyramids.
It's about 300 feet underneath the pyramid, which is like Egypt. That's not one anybody else. They're doing their best to shut off everything save for a couple groups, right? Because if they start showing that stuff, lots of individuals want to take that to museums. They can't do that because if people saw that, it would just uproot history and everything else, right? They couldn't push the live history like they do right now,
right?
And people, if people began to doubt civilian history, they would go right to the Bible or right to some other religious book to try and find what was real. That's all one need to do is disprove public history, right? Because let's go ahead and face it. Not one of us was back in historic times, so we don't know. We know it by the word of others. But yes, they're finding, first in California, for example, in the ocean, there were two doors that they found in a like a mound, but these doors had this green layer over them. Well, that green layer, they put one of those shark tabs through and it went right through and came back out. The problem was that this little mound was very thin. You could see on the opposite side. So it's still down there today. Nobody can get to it because all your equipment will fail. Everything will start failing. The only way to get down there is with some sort of retainer roof. Right, this is in California.
Yeah.
In the Grand Canyon, same thing. In several canyons, there are places that if you walk in there, you're gonna lose track of all time, everything. You can't get out. You'll die. You'll stay there. You'll be trapped, or you'll vanish like everybody else did. And there are a lot of folks in government, a lot of folks in the Vatican, a lot of folks in everywhere. They believe there is a system, almost like a transport system, in these places where you go through one spot, come out the other. Now that would seem, just outlandish, right? But without going into any detail, that's not outlandish. It's just one other element of the earth we have little to no understanding of.
And so these are the kind of things we start talking about, these things like that. It's like there is no doubt, dimensions. We know there's dimensions. The Apostle Paul said, I know a man 14 years ago that went into the third heaven. He was talking about himself. So there are dimensions that we have not yet, in even today's modern era, are still struggling with it. But God, all things are possible to them that believe. The Lord has. Jesus Christ, even when he rose from the dead, walked through walls, yet could sit down and eat fish and bread. So you have to understand that.
It's something we don't
and we know
get.
Philip preached a revival in Samaria in the book of Acts. I think it's chapter 8. And when the whole city gets saved, and it's an incredible revival. And it says, and then Philip was carried away in the spirit into the desert. And he shows up, and there's one man riding in a chariot reading the book of Isaiah chapter 53, and he don't understand what he's reading. He went all the way to Jerusalem to worship during the feast. He was on his way back. He still don't understand who was the Isaiah talking about in Isaiah 53. And so Philip preaches them Jesus Christ. But the truth is, from where Philip was in Samaria to where he wound up in Gaza, over at the Gaza Strip, was quite a distance, let's just say. It would have been about 40 miles. And just, so he was translating. Did he go through some kind of little portal to get over there, or God just grabbed him and just, just translated him there? We know that Enoch didn't die, but was translated, picked up and taken into heaven in a translation. We know Elijah didn't die, but chariots of fire came and got him, took him to heaven right in front of us. So there are supernatural intelligence. There are things that the Bible said. Let me just give you another example. The Bible says that
Henry Groover didn't. Oh, what about Henry Groover?
In chapter, I believe it is chapter 19. It's either chapter 19
Yeah, Henry Groover translated and went to the Vatican down below Rome and saw two giant fallen angels chained up below the surface. So translation's happening now. I'm pretty sure it's Henry Groover.
Chapter 11, 19. Where John sees the Ark of the Covenant in heaven. This is in the Spirit. He's in the Spirit now.
Okay.
He's on the Isle of Patmos receiving the book of Revelation. And he sees the Ark in heaven. Did he see the actual Ark? Or was he seeing the heavenly Ark? Because there's a new heaven and a new earth coming.
He saw the heavenly Ark because we know Ron Wyatt found the earthly Ark in Jeremiah's grotto. We already know that.
Now, I believe you saw the heavenly Ark and the brazen altars there. All of these things are also in heaven as they were on earth.
Yep.
Because what's in heaven is also on earth.
Yep. God
had a connection. So, and it's kind of funny because if you watched tonight, I'm on television right now, actually, over at PTL Network. And then later tonight, I'll be on channel 40 in Annapolis and channel 46 in South Bend. And then later tonight, channel 14 in Honolulu. And then next week, several times during the day on over in Arkansas. But I actually posted this television show. It's on my website. It's on YouTube right now, called Secrets of the Vatican. It's an interview I did with Rabbi Harry Moskoff, who's been searching the Ark of the Covenant, and says that they know that it's in right behind me here under the Temple Mount, out underneath the Dome of the Rock. That's the Dome of the Rock right there. No, but just southwest of there a little bit, up on that Temple Mount up here, up on this Temple Mount, and down below, the Ark of the Covenant is in a secret compartment that was put there just before King Herod's temple was destroyed in 70 AD to hide it. And Heidi and I were talking about this because there was a famous archaeologist, explorer, good man, a really good man of God, Ron Wyatt, who was digging and trying to find the Ark of the Covenant. He wasn't digging though underneath the Temple Mount. He was actually over by Golgotha, or a place they believe is Golgotha. That's over by the Garden Tomb, where he was digging deep down in there, and he thought he saw the Ark of the Covenant. He believed he saw it.
No, he took photos of it, Paul. Tell the story.
I believe he saw the Ark of the Covenant
Yep.
just like John saw it in heaven.
Yep.
I believe Ron saw a vision. I believe he did see a vision. He's a good man. I believe he did see.
It wasn't a vision, it was real time. He saw the physical Ark of the Covenant.
In a vision, the Ark. But it couldn't have been the real Ark because at the time, the real Ark was in Jerusalem. So the blood of Christ could not have ran down Jesus's body and into the ground and down to the cracks and onto the mercy seat because it wasn't there. It was still in Jerusalem. That's why when Christ died, there was a great earthquake, and it says the veil in the temple was rent in twain, exposing the Holy of Holies. The middle wall of petition had to be broken down. It tells you that because Christ died in 33 AD, and the temple was not destroyed till 70 AD, and the temple was not taken down and hidden in the Temple Mount until around 67 AD. And we know that's true because when they found the second temple's incense buried way out in the Qumran caves, when Vendell Jones and his Indiana team, that's where they come up with Indiana Jones, when Vendell Jones and his Indiana team found the incense inside of the 1500.
Wow, and that's where they get Indiana Jones from. I never knew that, guys.
Pounds of incense that was hidden there out in the cave because Jeremiah in the book of the Maccabees had told them to hide it in this specific cave. And they found 1,500 pounds of it. And when they did, they found a coin dated 67 AD.
Wow.
That's the year they took that and hid it in the cave. And that's the same year they took the Ark of the Covenant and hid it down in the Temple Mount. So just to make it just so we understand, did Ron Bryant see the Ark of the Covenant? Yes, he did. He's seen it in a vision. It had to be a vision. It couldn't have been the real one because he said he saw the blood of Christ on it. Well, the blood of Christ could not have been on it under Golgotha because the temple, the Ark of the Covenant, wasn't under Golgotha.
He's completely ignoring the crack from where the cross is placed in the ground. There's a crack going straight down to the top of the Ark of the Covenant. And you've got to know that if you watch Ron Wyatt's stories. So he's actually not being honest here.
Christ was on the cross. But did Ron Wyatt see something? Did he visualize something? I believe he did. I believe just like John. Did John see something?
No.
John the Revelator. Did he see the Ark of the Covenant in heaven? Yes, I believe he did in a vision. And so what I'm saying is the Ark of the Covenant, the one that's here on earth, will be brought out.
Okay, Vas, the problem with Daily Excellence is when he plays Mike from around the world, someone's jumped on and pretended to be Mike from around the world and got the copyrights. So if you download a Mike from around the world on Daily Excellence, you'll get a copyright strike. And that happened about 2 months ago. So I don't know if they sorted that out yet, but I do know Mike from around the world goes on there, and he talks a lot more about Bible stuff on there than he does here, actually.
And will be brought into that third temple. And the whole world will see these priests carrying it in through the front door. And it will be one of the biggest spectacles on the planet. And this is the reason the Antichrist will want to come and hijack it and because the whole world will become believers. Can you imagine? They will be believers that the Bible's true. And people will be coming to the knowledge of Yeshua because the two witnesses will be preaching in the streets. The Bible tells us that they will preach and thousands are going to be saved. And they will also send plagues on the earth. And this will drive the Antichrist mad. And it will drive the presidents and kings of the earth insane. And they will hire assassins to try to kill him and can't kill him. So what happens then? It says that eventually they do kill him. Both of them. And then what happens? On the third day, while their bodies are laying right back here behind me on the street, right in the streets of Jerusalem, and the world is celebrating that they finally killed the two witnesses. You can find this in Revelation 11. The Bible says, then the Spirit of the Lord will raise them from the dead. And the whole world will see it. I guess CNN must be going to have their cameras there. Every major network. You know they will. Just like they'll all be there with their cameras when the Ark of the Covenant's carried into the temple. They're all going to be there when those two witnesses are finally dead. It'll be on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, every major television network, Air Arabia, Al Jazeera, CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, MSNBC, Fox News, every major cable network, the BBC, everybody will be watching these two dead prophets laying there. And they'll be celebrating that God is dead, just like Time Magazine tried to do in the 1970s when they put on the title on the front page of Time, God is dead. And they will celebrate it. But the Bible says, and then the Spirit of God, the Lord, will raise them from the dead, and they will be raptured in the sky, right out of the sight of everyone. Are you serious? And then people will once again believe in Yeshua, Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And if I'm still alive, and Jack Van Impe said I would be, but I hope I am, I don't know. But if I'm still alive, I'll be right there. If I can be, if I'm not in prison somewhere, probably, for preaching the gospel. But I'll be celebrating because I'll know when these two witnesses get killed. I know they're going to get up from the grave. I know they're going to get out they're going to raise from the dead. I'll be standing there if I can be.
Okay, so there's no more Mike from around the world by the sounds of it. I might give this Super Soldier one a go. I haven't played it or listened to it yet, so I've got no idea what it's going to be. But I do believe in a secret space program, so let's see what he's got to say. This is your link, Vast. Which one is it? There it is.
We're very close. Okay.
Okay, the channel's called Super Soldier Talk, and this one's had 7,000 views, so they've got a bit of an audience. Let's see what they got to say.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Super Soldier Talk. Some people have been commenting, James, you look like you're younger. I'm not going to make a comment about that, but I just have to tell people this. Never mind. This is a stupid topic. Let's move on. I'm not a clone. So somebody's been throwing that out there. Well, maybe I am, but it doesn't matter. It's the same person in it. Okay. Like I said, let's go back to the main featured presentation. We have Jimmy Payne here with us today. Super Soldier Agent Jimmy Payne, also known aka Dallas, was in the secret space program from 1959 to 1996. During this time, he was a shuttlecraft pilot for the Tall White Warriors at Area 51 and participated in time travel missions with the Montauk boys at Camp Hero. He also recalls working with the Weyland Corporation where he encountered a xenomorph at LV-426, which the movie Aliens was based off of. So, and he was, in the movie Aliens, it was Captain Dallas, and that was Jimmy Payne. So he was stationed on Mars.
Okay, it's gone glary. Hang on.
On Mars, he's seen a broken statue, the giant face of a humanoid, on a mission in 1974 along with Duncan O'Finian. He remembers seeing Tommyknockers in a cave on Mars, which is a muscular type of tall grades. On the moon of Titan, he was stationed at a massive underground base. He was tasked with fighting a monster they called It. It looked like the junior Montauk monster, a type of Bigfoot monster that would gain strength by attacking it. He was also on a secret mission from Vandenberg Air Force Base, the Apollo 20 mission, with William Rutledge, where they discovered an Oriental-looking humanoid named E.B. Mona Lisa. Jimmy claims the Apollo 20
seen that.
YouTube is real. He also, I didn't put this in his bio, I don't know if he sure wanted to take credit for it, but he knew who the assassin was for JFK. The guy.
I've seen that Oriental thing they found wherever they found it. It's a girl, and she's got these weird things like machines holding her eyes open. It's really weird.
They had a invisibility belt, and so I pressed the button. Oh, he also, I don't know if you want to talk about Chernobyl, but yeah, so there's a lot of things going on. Jenny, why don't you go ahead and chime in? Did I say too much already? Or should we just move on? Jenny, you there?
Yeah, I'm here, James. Yeah, it's good to be back, you know.
All right. Thank you for coming back here. So where should we even bring this conversation here? Oh, by the way, thank you, listeners who are joining us the chat. So yeah, we are back on the main channel, and I've already told Jimmy the words that he's not allowed to say, but we are going to be discussing the fracturing or the balkanization or the what we call the splintering of the United States of America after the collapse of the U.S. dollar. So, Jimmy, can you tell us why are you even qualified to even comment about this? What are your qualifications? Go ahead.
Well, I hyper-threaded inside and out between Area 51 and Montauk, that is Camp Hero up in New York, Long Island, New York. And I've been with the program ever since I was a child. I was raised out of Area 51.
Man, I love his accent. Is that deep south? I love his accent.
So I've been doing a lot of time travel all my life. I have yet to see another person has as much time in it that I do.
All right, so maybe we can discuss the type of technology, for instance, the side effects, I guess, from time travel. You mentioned something that it can be potentially dangerous for people that have done this, right?
Yeah, a lot of the reason why a lot of these dates are inaccurate, you have people who claim to have time jumped, and they'll give a date, and the date comes and goes. Well, what happens is when we time jump, the radio frequencies, it can make your brain swell. Okay, it's and when you have that much swelling going on, you'll have a little bit of temporary amnesia. But as the days goes by, you'll start to recall more. So that's it has health, has some downsides to it, but that's one of the downsides.
Can you tell people the story about the man that had the invisibility belt on? That he got caught, but they couldn't see him, but they knew he was in the room, and they locked him in there because there's a limit on how long the technology can be used. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Are you talking about?
I've heard of that. They can put an electro field around the soul, and the soul can't get out of it. Yeah.
Happened at Texas Scoop Book Depository.
I think I don't know. I think it might have been another event, but maybe you can. Why don't you go ahead and tell people what happened at the Texas School Book Depository?
Yeah, I was there in the room when Lee Harvey Oswald shot the 3 blanks. There was a second shooter there in the room with him, and what he was trying to do, he was trying to bring the snipers out, and the other man is the one that actually
Come on,
pulled,
animals, you're making it.
got,
Laptop
shot at the
rock.
president. But there he had an invisibility belt they had on. He could flip it and you couldn't see him. That's how I knew about it.
Right. So the cop came up the staircase, and the guy had turned on his visibility belt. They walked right past the cop, the assassin. And
Well, the cop saw a little boy coming down the stairs. They don't pay too much attention to a child, but his attention was towards going towards an adult or where the sound came from. But I did meet one of the policemen as they were going up the stairs, but he didn't pay me any attention because I was very young at the time.
so why do you think they took JFK out?
He was about to go public, letting them know that we have visitors at Area 51. And he just, like I said, they knew that if he had stayed in office, that we would have had a war. So he had to be taken out. He had to be taken out.
All right. So was he spilling the beans with Marilyn Monroe, or is that not confirmed? Or is it confirmed? With I guess they were having a fling.
Marilyn Monroe was a presidential model, but I don't want to get too far into that. I want to get back on what goes on.
Okay, so go ahead and tell us what year in the future you went to, and how and where. So I'm assuming that's where you got this information on. You've been into our future, so tell us what year you were and what did you see?
Well, James, I've been many times into the future and many times into the past. I've been as far as 630 AD.
Okay, Tree, good night, mate. God
so many
bless.
different timelines. It's unbelievable. I've been to alternative timelines. If you've ever watched the movie Planet of the Apes, I'm in one of those movies. I was on a space station, the Orbiton, and had to go down and get one of my chimps, and ended up meeting a humanoid chimpanzee by the name of General Thage. I ended up locking him in the old spacecraft. But I don't want to get off on alternative timelines. I'm just letting you know.
So you're saying the movie Planet of the Apes is a documentary, essentially?
Well, no, it's not a documentary.
Okay, guys, and that's not so outlandish because in the 60s, Time magazine posted a picture of a humanity, half chimp and half human. So they already done that in the 60s. So him saying there's monkeys with, they're called generals because they got ranks, it's possible because they done this in the 60s. So here we are in the 2000s, quite possible. So it's not that outlandish.
What they did was they took some of that information and they spin it off into these movies as a soft disclosure. The movie is not a documentary. There's a lot of things in the movie that didn't happen, but the part about the apes, intelligent apes, that's true. So we have alternative timelines, and we also have alternative dimensions. You can move forward in time, you can move back in time, you can move sideways in time.
What's that mean?
All right, so describe what for people that have not seen your previous shows, so describe what the actual time travel device looked like that you utilized.
Well, there's several different types. There's a portable device, a mobile device, and then there's a stationary device. It just depends on where you're doing a time jump at. The one that I'm more familiar with is, the one I first started out with was on the Eldridge. So, and there's some that are looks like a back phone, you know, you can use, and I have seen them down to the size of a like you have a set of car keys and you want to lock and unlock your car. I have seen some as small as that, but I believe those are alien. What the tall grays use mostly. So it can be man-made or it can be alien-made.
Yeah, well, I don't know, I'm not sure if you're familiar with John Titor, but there's some pictures on the internet, this so-called time travel device that used two wormholes, black skulls, or formula.
I know John.
Oh, well, so John, that's real? That's not some internet hoax?
That he's real. I worked with John out when I was at Montauk. He's a nice guy. He lives down in Florida. He would be, I think he was born around 1997. So he's alive now, and he's in hiding. He's scared. He knows what's going down. And so, you know, I can't interfere with the current timeline. I can talk back and forth with you, but this timeline is not going to end very well, and we're very, very near the end of it. We're going to see the fraction of the United States not long from now, and it's not going to be. It's not the end of the world, people. It is not the end of the world, but a lot of you are going to die. A lot of people who are listening to this are not going to make it. Some will. But
okay, well, but Jimmy, I mean, I'm guessing you're referring to the nuclear radiological events. So, how do you know that version of the future is our timeline or an alternate reality timeline?
Good question.
Well, because I've been there with John. Me and John did the time jumps. If you ever watch the movie Terminator, the intelligence report was turned over. Of course, they changed the names around, and you know, it's kind of like you're asking for a Freedom of Information report, and you get it, and a lot of it's blacked out. But you give it to a writer, a movie producer, and then they kind of fill in the blank spots. You know what I mean? So some of it is real, a lot of it's made up, but that's soft disclosure.
Wait. So you're saying that the Terminator is real? Skynet has been sent back in time, kind of scenario?
Yes, it's real, but now the Terminator, the one that pours, is not real.
The one that liquid metal.
Yeah,
liquid metal. Yeah.
That was what happened on that. Linda Hamilton, the actress, she's married to James Cameron, the movie producer, and Linda picked up the intelligence report. Of course, it was blacked out. You know, she couldn't see the parts that were blacked out, but she did a little LSD during that time, and she dreamed the part of the liquid pouring Terminator. But I knew Linda. I know the woman personally, and I've been around James Cameron. Of course, I don't know James that well, but now James is kin to Alexander James Cameron on the Eldridge. So I've been on the Eldridge, you know, the teleportation ship. I believe that to be his great nephew.
Wow.
The movie producer James Cameron.
All right. Well, you know, I'm highly fascinated with the Terminator timeline, but we need to stay focused. I hope the audience members are okay with that. We just go stay on topic to do what's on hand here about the fracturing of the United States. So tell us, I'm guessing you went to the future. What year in the future did you go to where you got the data of what happened now? I'm assuming, was it like way in the future that when you're talking about the colonial marines, or are we talking about like maybe 2040s or something when
Good
the aftermath
question.
of all this collapse?
I believe that, going back and trying to recollect what the closest to the timeline was, I was out at Socorro, New Mexico, and where they have the telescopes, the satellites, and we hooked up a computer to one of the telescopes, and once we fired up the computer, we had we opened up a alternative timeline, and I actually looked. It was a lot of helicopters flying overhead, futuristic helicopters, and there was a battle going on, and with Terminators running around, and I was there with John, and I actually looked to the west when they dropped the bomb, and that was when Los Angeles got wiped off the map. Now that is not very far from now. I'm trying to tie it down. I think we're probably about 3 years out, maybe 4 years out. It's a little hard to tie it to one particular year, but we're very close.
Okay, so I'm guessing you used a chronovisor type technology, because I know you said you worked for Father Enrenti, correct, at the Vatican with a chronovisor.
Well, I have, but that was a different. That's completely different from what we were doing. We had basically hooked up a computer to the satellite dish, and it did the same thing like at Montauk with the radar tower. We were able to open up another timeline. That's what I'm talking about there.
So you're able to confirm that this looking glass, whatever it is you're doing, technology is our timeline and not an alternate timeline? Are you sure?
I believe we have two timelines overlapping one another. We're getting close to where the two lines come together, okay? And what is, the United States military has a lot of neat stuff, a lot of neat equipment they're not talking about. But that military gets decimated, okay? They're not going to win the war. The United States will be dissolved. A lot of the population will be killed off. And there's going to be a lot of starvation. There's going to be cannibalism in pockets of the country. You're going to have people fighting over the food, okay?
Okay, do you remember that Spanish kid who was having an open vision of the end days? And he was saying, he was crying and saying that cannibalism was going on. And yeah, so like I said, this isn't so outlandish.
So, the United States believes it can win this war with China. It's not going to win it. I know for a fact that on the aircraft carrier that the Chinese have in service right now, they have 4 psychics on that aircraft carrier, and they have hypersonic missiles. So the United States is not going to win. I don't care what general up in the Pentagon says. Is all bull. In fact, they're going to rape the American soldiers that survive. They're going to rape them. Out of a 200 million man Chinese army, you have at least 1 million men that are gay. They can't find wives. They ain't got enough women. over there. So what's going to happen is those 1 million gay Chinese are going to rape every one of the American soldiers.
Wow.
That's why they're pushing all this woke gay stuff on the American military. Okay?
Wow.
That's why they're doing it. And if they keep you alive, they're particularly if you're a male, they're going to castrate you to keep you from reproducing. Okay, they're going to look kind of like slave labor. So they want the fields for food, the farmland. They want the farmland for food. They're going to reduce the population of the United States, and that is how they're going to do it. And look, you don't need to have a whole lot of missiles. The only thing you got to do is put a nuke in a cargo container and float it in the port of Los Angeles and take out all the cranes. Okay, that's all they have to do.
All right, so let's discuss. Let's go from the current time into the future. So, what are some of the triggers on the timeline that you see happening? The main events. What are so yeah, maybe like what the collapse of the dollar, or is there something else, or is there a bunch of things? Go ahead.
Well, that's a good question, James. The dollar will collapse. It's just a matter of time when it collapses. And you have to remember everything's imported. And in times of war, they're not going to let cargo ships come on in those ports. Okay, so we're not going to be able to have any importing coming into the country. Now, the electrical grid system is not hardened. In other words, one EMP would take out the electrical grid. A lot of the refrigeration plants where we have food that's chilled is going to spoil. The interstate highway system is going to be damaged in such a way that the bridges and everything, we're not going to be able to move transports around. And the only other way to move things would be by water. Now, you block the Mississippi River, you mine the Mississippi River, nobody's going to go in there, you see. So we got that going on. We also have a real issue going on up in Canada with the tar fields. I do know that a missile hits the tar fields, get them burning, and you have black radioactive oil that gets into the stratosphere. And it clogs up a lot of face masks that these soldiers are going to be wearing. Oil clogs up the filters, the respirator filters. So your mask is useless. Okay.
Yeah, hold on, Jimmy. So, what Jimmy just said is that there might be a nuclear event in the oil fields of Canada, which will ignite it all and clog all the air filters to remove radioactivity. So basically, just everything. Everybody gets fucked. So, before you go into the radiological thing, can we discuss more of other triggers in the timeline? For instance, so the dollar collapses because of the BRIC nations are not using the dollar, correct? Yes.
Correct.
Yes. So so after the collapse of the dollar, the first thing people are going to notice is the stores are going to just totally be emptied out, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So stores, but there's still going to be groceries, right? For a while. Still buy food.
No food.
Why? Why is there no food?
Well, you have to have fuel to run the tractors to plow the fields. Then you have to have an interstate highway system to distribute the food. So the cities, if you're in a city, there's no way to get food into the cities. Okay. The United States military will not be capable of fighting 200 million man army. That's how many are coming. The Chinese are coming. And then you have other countries that are invading. You have the North Koreans. They'll be coming in. They've been promised Washington State. Why Washington State, I don't know. The Cubans will be coming in through the Mississippi Valley. They end up with Florida. Russia ends up with the entire, most of the East Coast of the United States. And China gets most of, well, I know they get Nevada, California. They get most of the western United States. So it's shattered up. There's no more United States.
Wow.
Now there is a United America, but that's 5 super states that are formed. But see, nobody wins a nuclear war. Even the Chinese are starving. Okay, this is when it gets up in the stratosphere, it affects the weather, the crops worldwide. It's a curling of the human race.
All right. Okay. Wow. All right. So, what are, so you mentioned 5 super states. Could you tell us what these super states regions and what are these regions? Where are they located?
If you look at the United States right now, instead of having 50 states, you have 5 super states. And each state is regional. There's no more central government, okay? Washington is completely wiped out. All the politicians are dead. And the people try to rebuild, but they live very primitive, like you did before there was electricity. You had a horse, or you use a sailboat. You'll get up at sunrise and you'll go to the field and you'll work all day long in that field, 7 days a week, from sun up to sundown. It's a very hard life. And if you break a leg, there'll be you have a local doctor, he will set it. But if you need pins in your leg, you're not going to get it. Okay, it's real crude, like you had back in 1800s. Mm-hmm. And there'll be a shortage of medicine, so only the fittest will survive it.
Oh wow. Okay, so you're saying eventually the Chinese will get repelled. A great loss to.
Well, they don't get repelled. What happens is it's a curling of the human race. There are no winners in this war. The population gets reduced down to about, I want to say 147 million worldwide, but it builds back up to about 500 million. The Georgia Guidestones, when they were put up, I was there doing security for the dedication. So all that was put on to the Guidestones before they foolishly were blown up by some idiot.
All right. So let's go back before we get to nuclear war. So the next trigger will be the collapse of the dollar. Do you have any information on what that will be like? Will that be like a slow, gradual decline over a 3-year period, or will it be immediate?
Good question.
Like one day you wake up and you find out your money's worthless.
It's going to come in phases, James. First, there'll be social unrest in the Southwest. We're seeing it now with immigration, okay? And then when these world powers get to fighting, it's just not the United States that are in trouble. It spreads worldwide.
Okay. So after the collapse of the U.S. dollar, okay, so what happens next? I guess the federal government totally falls apart. Like nobody respects it anymore. There's no military because nobody's paying them.
Well, it's like this. People get real religious in the future. Okay, they go around and they say, why me? Why did this happen? And they're very mad at the United States government, but there's no United States government because the ones that do survive it are hunted down and killed. Okay, you got the Chinese wanting to hunt them down and kill them. You have your own fellow Americans ready to hunt them down, and they have this belief that they can go into underground base and everything's going to be fine. Well, it's not going to be fine. I've been down in those underground bases. My friend Phil Snyder, before he was murdered, I've been down in there with him. It's just real sad, but there's a way to get out of this. And it goes back to me. It looks like I'm going to have to go back to Nellis Air Force Base and meet with the visitors and talk with them. But they're not the ones that caused this. I believe that something could be worked out. But the United States government is a false government. It was created at Montauk. We had guys that were going back in time, giving Abraham Lincoln the Gettysburg Address. That Gettysburg Address was wrote out at Camp Hero as a campaign speech for Lincoln. So the timeline's been changed. Right now, as you get to a stable timeline, and that would probably mean someone going back and correcting the error.
All right. Well, correcting the error, all that does is just creates an alternate reality. It doesn't really help us here, right?
What it does, you'll see the United States flag fade and another flag take its place. You would still be there. You would know the difference, but only you would know it. It's kind of like the Bernstein event, well, the Nelson Mandela event is what I'm trying to say. People have memories, but they would just be some vague memories.
Do you remember Tank Boy being run over at Tiananmen Square, I think it's 89?
James, I remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison.
Yeah.
That's why they call it. Now that timeline was tampered with, and they altered it. I remember when I did the jump on the Titanic, the Titanic sister ship, the Olympic. Titanic never sunk. It was the Olympic that sunk.
And you went in there to steal the gemstone, the Hope Diamond.
Yeah, the Hope Diamond. Yeah, a correction there. What had happened? The Titanic's sister ship was repainted to look like the Titanic, and that's why you have the people running around now, the Titanic conspiracists. One ship had gray primer, one ship had black primer, and so we changed the ships around, and we also looted the safes and got the money, the gold and the Hope Diamond out as well.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. So actually, Jimmy just talked about the Titanic thing in a previous video, but let's go back to actually the collapse again. Okay, so going back to my question, so when the United States dollar implodes, so I guess the federal workers are not going to get paid, and I guess the military is not going to get paid, correct?
Correct.
So what happens? What happens to all these military bases? Do they just like sell their tanks and something to pay the soldiers, or what?
It all falls apart. I mean, it's people. You have to eat. Okay. If there's no food, how can you fight? All right. And you have to be able to transport the food. Okay. So, you know, if you're in the military and all of a sudden your hometown gets nuked, what do you think that's going to do to the morale?
Okay, but hold on, Jimmy. We haven't got to that yet because, how about we just go to that right now? Let's discuss what actually triggers this war, because the United States is already falling apart. The military bases, I guess, are being vacated because soldiers are not being fed, and I guess they just go home to their families. And the Chinese are coming in, I guess, at this point, or
yes,
yeah. Okay.
yeah,
So
they're fighting over the food. It's not that the Chinese are fighting for China. It's not that the United States soldiers are fighting for the United States. They're fighting over the food at that point.
is it because the Three Gorges Dam finally implodes and floods out, like I guess kills maybe 200 million people in China?
It's worldwide when these missiles go to fire.
Yeah, but who does it first? Because the military bases are vacated. Who has control of the stockpiles in the U.S.? And do they take the first blow?
All I know is that I had I shot one of the missiles down over the United States. The second missile got past me and went up into Canada and hit the tar sands. And once the tar sands get to burning, there's no way to put it out. It's an endless amount of tar sands, and radioactive oil gets up in the stratosphere, and it gets over everything. It affects the land, the seas, everything. You can't put it out.
So that missile is probably Chinese or Russian.
I would imagine that is probably
China.
I believe it to be North Korean, but then I can't say for sure. I believe that the first two missiles that were shot were EMPs.
Oh wow! So they take out the electrical grid, and that damages our ability to defend ourselves.
They take out their electrical, and then there's other missiles that are coming in. Okay, they're going very fast, so they're probably hypersonic missiles. We don't have hypersonic missiles, and even if we did, we don't have enough quantities to counter what's coming in.
Wow. Okay. So but you really don't know who does the first strike or what it's about, probably.
I know that the two superpowers are involved, China and Russia, along with North Korea. I believe they're going to use North Korea as a diversion so they can, get the other missiles up from other silos located outside of North Korea.
Okay. And so they're waiting for the U.S. dollar to collapse to make this strike because I guess they want us to be weak.
Yeah, exactly, Diane.
I believe so.
Exactly, Diane. Why is he up here lying? It don't make sense. I know he's saying some really about technology and time travel and all that, but time travel is in the Bible. Thou shalt not be observers of time, and it's with all the sorcerers and that. So yeah, I know it sounds so crazy that all this is happening, but it's too much detail. I believe him. You're right. I agree.
James, it seems to go back. The Chinese president lately has been brokering peace deals between different countries. That's something I've never seen just recently. And so he's projecting world might. You know, he's able to get around and negotiate. And but when our United States dollar fails, who's wanting to trade with us? You know, and we have this deal going around about this woke army. It looks bad, looks very bad. And then you have the NASA's gone woke. The first black astronaut is going to say he's going to get on the moon. He's got a speech prepared, and he's going to talk about Whitey. So it's turned racial from NASA's point of view, which is sad.
So they're going to do another moon landing soon, is what you're...
Yeah. The black astronaut's got some racial statements to make when he gets onto the moon, and which is sad, but he's bringing racism or whatever his cause is.
Meanwhile, the Germans have been there since the 1930s.
We made it to the moon around 1944, but it's not widely known. In fact, von Braun, most of the engines on the at NASA are the same engines that von Braun built when he came over. So it's been nothing new built at NASA, you know, but it has gone woke, is what I'm saying.
All right, so let's just say I don't know, for whatever chance, maybe there's a military general watching this, or maybe somebody under them that say, oh, well, let's just forward this up to command. Jimmy, what can be done to change the timeline? I mean, what do you think? What can we do to stop all this?
Well, first, I want to say this. I don't want to be experimented on. And if I was to return to Nellis Air Force Base, Creech Air Force Base, or Holland Air Force Base, whatever it be, I want to be able to not listen to your officers there. I don't disrespect them, but your military is going to the dustbin. It's over at this point. And every one of you, including your generals, including your joint chiefs of staff, will be raped. You're going to be raped.
Wow.
And the ones of you that they're going to keep, you're going to lose your testicles. This has been done in China for hundreds of years. They castrate their servants. Okay, and you have to accept the fact that the United States is going to the dustbin.
Yeah, we know
there
that.
will be a United America. It would be 5 super states. If you want to stay alive, you need to let me come back to Area 51, and you need to drop all your silliness, okay? And I need to get with your visitors and try to get them to take the cookie off of the computer at Camp Hero. That means taking a time jump back, because at Camp Hero they started tinkering with the timeline, and they did successfully do it. But all things come to an end, and this is coming to an end, and it's not going to be favorable to you or any of your loved ones.
So this reality is like Grand Theft Auto, and so we're not even supposed to exist according to the ET, because of what happened at Montauk. Things got switched, so we're just a big experiment to them. So they probably don't want to even bother trying to help us, because they want to see how the experiment ends, right? I guess.
Correct. That's why they have not made contact. Everyone who is listening to this, to me speaking, you are a test subject. They are observing the timeline. The timeline is corrupt, and it is coming to an end. And just like the Mandela effect, if I went back and changed things, some of you would have memories, but you wouldn't really know. You would just be living. You just wake up one morning, and everything would be different in your lives, and this will all be behind you.
Right. Okay. So, what actually happens to the seat of power? Does Mr. T come back, or is Mr. B? Does something happen to him? Do you know?
I don't. You've lost me there. What?
I can't say their names because of YouTube.
Okay.
What happens to these people? Go ahead.
Neither one of them. There's no United States government. It goes back to what it was prior to the tampering. There will not be a United States government. It goes back to what it was before it was tampered with. You are an American. You need to be proud of being an American. But your timeline has been altered. It's been tinkered with. And it's just going to get worse. This does not end well for anyone. That's why it has to be altered to go back and reset the timeline. And then maybe the aliens, for some of y'all who won't want to communicate with them, maybe they will talk to you then. But they're not going to talk to you now because you all are test subjects. You're living in an alternative reality.
So, what would be like the safest places in the United States to?
There is no safe place, obviously.
Regroup, maybe you're
nowhere.
Part of the military campaign. Say, well, maybe we can put some of our troops over here. What do you think? Is there any place safe?
All I can tell you is not to be in a big city. All I can tell you, don't be next to a military target, a nuclear power plant, any of that. But you have to remember, you have damaged nuclear power plants, you have burning oil in the stratosphere. There's really not, some people will survive, but it's very few. It's going to be a curling of the Earth's population.
So you need property out in the country, I guess, and obviously far away enough so your greenhouses don't get shattered by the radiation or the nuclear weapons, right?
Some people, yes, you're correct. Some people will survive, but there won't be. We're talking maybe 147 million worldwide. It gets down to 147 million, then it stabilizes, and then it slowly builds back up to around 500 million, but it never gets above 500 million. We have too many people right now.
Well, I mean, they could just open up a portal to the multiverse, and you don't have to kill them. We could just send them off in the universe somewhere.
James, you have to have a lot of power to open up a portal, and it goes back that you are an experiment right now. You're living in an experiment. The best way to correct the problem is simply to get our visitors out of Area 51. We need to go on back to Montauk and take the cookie off the computer. And the time traveling has been abused. We had people time traveling that tinkered with time. There was some of the time travelers, want to observe and then learn. we had other time travelers that disagreed with it and started tinkering with it. And that's what you have now. You have an endless succession of wars,
Rumors of
people
wars.
trying to get rich, you know, from their knowing what the stock market's going to do the next day. You know, people time traveling, and the best way to stop that is to go back and you know, kill the project before it starts, or either keep the project at Area 51 where it can be more readily studied. If it was at Area 51, we wouldn't have this problem right now. I don't believe we would.
Oh wow. Well, how about we discuss other triggers in the timeline? What are some of the other events that might show up soon? What do you think is going to happen?
I don't know, James. You just tell me what. Take a question from the audience if you want to. Let them ask.
Okay. Okay. So, audience members, I don't see too many questions. I see a lot of people commenting. There are a lot of people in denial. They think that we can just go to a positive timeline. I mean, I like to think that's the case, but let's see here. Okay, now's the opportunity, people. If you'd like to ask Jimmy a question, if it's a good one, I will put it up. Okay, but yeah. So, all right, let's go down here and see what you got. Well, okay, I'll just read some comments. We've got Mandela effects are real. Yeah, somebody said a gun changed color. We got Alex Collier saying nuclear issue has been neutralized on Earth because interference in other dimensions. Positive timeline for us, according to Alex Collier. All right. So somebody says here, okay, good questions, folks. Ask him aliens won't allow this to happen. It affects you. Why? What do you think? Aliens won't allow this to happen. Jimmy, I think you already answered.
The aliens are not going to interfere with anything. It's an experiment. They're observing.
So the Galactic Federation of Worlds will not assist us, is what you're saying, too.
I'm saying that there are many different aliens or visitors that come to Earth from time to time. And just because one group says something doesn't mean that one group rules what the other groups think. Okay. I knew Alex Collier. I've known. I know his aliens. I've been around them. And Andromedans. They're good. They're good people. I've been around Andromedans before, but we can't mix religion with what we want. Okay, we don't always get what we want in life, and it's been 70 years since it's been a nuclear war. Well, a war, correct? A war, world war, and we just have too many people on Earth.
All right, let's go to the next question. Somebody's asking about Canada. What happens to Canada in this war?
Canada is dead. I mean, it's nothing up there. It's just covered in radioactive oil. So the Canadian military, they're not going to be able to respond either. In fact, they're probably the first ones that'll die because of the radiological oil.
What?
Okay, what about this?
Hang on, what did you say? The radiological what?
Canada is dead. I mean, it's nothing up there. It's just covered in radioactive oil. So the Canadian military, they're not going to be able to respond either. In fact, they're probably the first ones that'll die because of the radiological oil.
Okay, what about this? The Cascadia subduction zone. Will that go off sometime near future?
Where is that at?
I was going to ask the question. Is that where like Los Angeles is going to fall into the sea, that kind of thing. Eye-wise, there's somebody comment on that one. Well, so how about that? Can you comment on, do you think Los Angeles is going to fall into the sea?
James, Los Angeles is leveled. You know, I mean, it's nothing but cremated bodies there. I was there with John Teeter, and there was nothing but cremated people. Now, there are some people that regrouped at the observatory, but those people are the ones that were outside the city, that came in the city, or that may have been in an underground part of the city. But they're just searching for food. Everybody is hungry. Okay. There's no water systems. Municipal water systems are working. No power. Everything is down. And nobody's coming to help. Military cannot respond to this type of disaster. You have a lot of people who are burned. You have a lot of people who are blind from the blast. You have people that their eardrums are burst. They have blood coming out of their ears.
Wow.
They can't hear. Okay.
And so med buds are not made available, and the Dark Fleet doesn't land or anything. Because I know Johan Fritz commented about this in 2032. After all the cataclysms, Dark Fleet finally lands and provides medical assistance after all the destruction. Do you have any idea on that?
I don't know about that. I've been around Spark on the Enterprise.
Spock.
That's what I said, Spock. It might be let me adjust my microphone here. Yeah, I mean, I knew him, the Vulcan. He's too far out to respond in a timely manner. So forget about Enterprise, write it off.
Okay, how about from Down Under, sorry. What happens to Australia? Are they going to be fine down there?
Well, the Chinese are going to get it in for the Australians, so a lot of y'all going to get raped. I can say that. A lot of the males will be raped. The women would be taken, and the ones that they don't want, they just kill.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, good luck, China. We're no pushovers.
Let's see here. Someone's asking, Droney's asking, when is it supposed to happen? He said, what, 3 years from now? The next 3 years?
James, it can happen very soon. We're running up where the two timelines intersect.
I'm not sure if we're buying that.
I would say probably for the next 30 months or so, but I can't give an exact date because I told you when we do the time jumps, we have swelling of our brains. But I can tell you it's very soon from now.
How about Europe? How do they fare in all this?
They don't. Europe's gone.
Yeah, we'll die.
This is worldwide.
Why is it gone? Does it get nuked too?
It's the whole planet is in trouble. Okay, it's everybody starving. It's chaos worldwide. You have to remember, once this oil gets in the stratosphere, it goes all over the world. So what burns in Canada will drop over in Europe and also in China and Russia.
And then what about nuclear power plants? I suppose if there's an EMP, would that cause them also to burn up and explode?
Some of the nuclear power plants are targets for these nuclear weapons. What they want to do is hit these nuclear power plants and bog down the military trying to get these nuclear power plants under control. Look what Chernobyl did, or Fukushima.
Yeah,
Just a few power plants just overwhelmed the country.
Wow. Okay. Somebody says Cascadia is East Coast. So, is there a tsunami back the East Coast? Anything in that line?
I do know that some of the nuclear weapons are pointed at the faults, the earthquake faults, like the New Madrid, the Los Angeles, San Francisco fault up in that area. Now, interestingly, in the earthquake of 1811, 1812, when the New Madrid went off, 2/3 of the United States shook. All right, there was church bells as far as New York that rang, and it shook all the way down into South Mississippi. Now, out on the around 1811, 1812, residents of Charleston, South Carolina, they looked out into the ocean and they were seeing flashes of light out in the ocean, the bed of the ocean out there. Now, the guy that discovered the Titanic, he was out there surveying. He found some underwater volcanoes off the coast of Charleston, South Carolina, that were emitting some you call them black smokers, but basically superheated water from deep within the earth. So that's probably, like I said, it's some ancient volcanoes off the coast of the eastern United States. If those things erupt, they can cause a lot of problems, tidal waves, stuff like that. Now, Al Bielek, when he did the time jump, most of the United States was submerged. Where I'm at is submerged underwater.
Andrew Basaggio mentioned that too. They went to Washington, D.C. in the future, and it was under 150 feet of water. So how is that possible?
Well, Washington is a swampland anyway. A lot of places where you see people at now, they weren't there. And, with levees being built, pumps and everything, it can go back, it'll return back to what it was, James. You have to remember, if ice caps go to melting, you have a rise in seawater as well.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and make a few more questions and we'll wrap this up. So Connor would like to know what happens to cryptocurrency in the event of an EMP and nuclear war.
You have to have electricity to have cryptocurrency.
Good
there won't be
point.
no cryptocurrency.
All right, so AM Ghost, there you go. That answers your question. We've got here, tell us the timeline that Albex and nuclear devices detonated in Western region. Do you know this? 2532?
It was somewhere around before then. He was doing some jumps after the blast. So you have to remember, I've probably done 100 or more time jumps, probably 150. I don't know. I've done a lot of time jumps. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Al doing time jumps, and you have all these different people doing time jumps, and so no records. The records that were kept were sealed up, and some of them was brought down to Robinson Air Force Base. Other records went to Canada, and I don't know where the rest went to.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, all right. Are you familiar with a group called Time Corp? Time Corp? Do they work with a group? No. Yes? Yeah. Jimmy?
Go ahead now. One more.
Time Corp? Are you familiar with Time Corp?
No, I'm not. tell me about it briefly.
In the TV show Fringe, there's a group of archangel type ETs called the Observers, and that was based on. I mean, apparently those things are real, and what their job is to reset the timeline. So if there's a nuclear war or disaster or cataclysm, they'll come back. They'll come and reset it all and send people back in time, like star seeds, to come back and incarnate and to try to change the timeline. So every time it failed, they would come back and reset it. So they can basically reset timelines over and over and over again until everybody gets it right. And that's why there's like so many people come incarnated on planet Earth at this time, well, who are star seeds and crystals and whatever you want to call them, but indigos. So the whole goal is for us to change the time. So are you familiar with any of this?
Now that you're saying some things about it, I want to say this. Each individual everyone has a spirituality, okay? And some people believe that ET is going to save them. I'm going to say this. You can believe whatever you want to believe, but I'm basing this on what I observed over my experiences. And I can't say for what the other person here is inquiring about. I can only talk about what I experienced doing the time jumps and being on the Eldritch and teleporting, all that. Okay. And I am a spiritual person, but I keep my spiritualness to myself. I don't try to manipulate my environment for my religion, is what I'm saying.
So okay, thank you, Jimmy. Can you comment on, do the ETs finally make first contact with humanity, like show themselves and the government's not covering it up anymore kind of thing? Does that eventually happen?
James, they're already here.
I know, but so it's like matter of fact, everybody knows, oh yeah, there's aliens, and by the way, they're over there, you can go meet with them. Or
no, that's not going to happen. They know the timeline's been tampered with. They're here only to do one thing, is to observe. Now, I do believe this. When the ET gave humans the ability to time travel, I believe it's an intelligence test. And what I believe that they're waiting to see, are we going to blow ourselves up, or is somebody going to step forward and correct the problem? So I believe the intelligence test would be if I went back to Nellis Air Force Base or Creech or whatever and talked with them. I believe that would be enough to trigger it, to get one of them down there to take the cookie off the computers at Montauk. Now, I believe that. But we're not ready to time jump because we tinker with time too much. That was the fatal flaw that happened at Montauk, was to tinker with the time. And people that did that, some of them got very rich, and it caused a big problem between the men in black. You have some men in black that didn't want to do that, and some that did. And I fell into that group that didn't want to tinker with time, just observe it.
Thank you for sharing that. All right, let's go on. We got a few more questions. We're gonna have to wrap this up. Okay. Let's see here. I asked Jimmy this question earlier, and I think your answer was there's no place, none. Is it
no place? Right. There's no place. I don't like telling people that because.
Well, how about a safer place?
Well, James, it all goes back. There's no food. Okay, there's no food, and you have a lot of fighting going on around. You have cannibalism going around. Okay, it's not the end of the world. So there'll be some of y'all that will live, but a good many of you won't live.
All right, next question. Will the New York City be swamped in the future or a tsunami?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so what does it look like after this period of time, post-apocalyptic period? Is the World Trade, whatever, the New World Trade Center still standing, or is everything just leveled?
Everything's leveled.
Yeah.
It's a hell on earth. It's like nothing. I mean, I don't even think there's been anything in the movies that can compare it to. It's gone. It's gone, people. It's not there anymore. Your country is gone.
Wow.
Okay, so Iron Bear is asking this question. The man from the High Castle, is that real? I'm going to answer it, and maybe Jim, if you want, you can too. But let me answer it first, okay? So there is a timeline where the Germans took over America, and also the Japanese Empire took over the west coast of America, because the eastern coast was the American Reich. It was controlled by ARN, the Aryan Nazi Reich Party, in which currently Mr. T is very high up in, but in that alternate reality. But in order for the Germans to have a win, total win, it would have mean they would have had to embrace the Jews. So in that alternate reality, the Nordics were not having sex with the high-level SS, because it was the Nordics who gave that racial instructions to the Germans to incorporate that into their philosophy. So in this other reality, they didn't do that. So the Nazis embraced the Jews, gave them put their money into their banks, and they took over mostly over the world. So the answer is they didn't use how to use nukes to take over U.S. Washington D.C. still exists, but is instead of a Washington Monument, there's a spinning 150-foot tall spinning Nazi eagle spinning around, and the national language is German. And if you speak English in public, you get electric shocked by cattle prod by the police, because they're instructed to do that if you speak English. Also, you're not allowed to have any affection in public, and you're not allowed to have any interracial marriage. But they released all the free energy technologies, and Tesla was given a limited budget. So basically, everybody lives in mansions, provided you're not into interracial marriage, and then you live in the camps. And I don't know what the camps necessarily are like, but I don't think they're too pleasant in that reality. But yeah, that's the man from the High Castle. Okay, Jimmy, you want to comment about that alternate reality? What's the Nazis took over the United States, America?
Well, first off, the Civil War was tinkered with, and that affected World War II. Now, World War II, the United States stayed neutral. They never fought Germany. Okay. Now, what happened was a lot of y'all, you hear talk about the Queen of England and the royal family being reptilian. Now, that is very true. I have been around the Queen, and she is reptilian. She can shapeshift. Now, Hitler was trying to go after the royal family, but what happened was these British infiltrated the Montauk boys, and they helped tinkered around there where the United States wasn't neutral, and the United States went to war. But the Queen of England is reptilian, and so that is an alternative timeline that I'm more familiar with. Can there be alternative timelines? You bet. I've gone back and seen apes, talking apes, and during the Planet of the Apes, So there is alternative timelines. they're very real. Now, the timeline that I come from, the sun goes down, the sun comes up in the southeast and it goes down in the southwest. That's my timeline. So my timeline's a little different from your timeline. That's why I use the alias Jimmy Payne. And I'm not trying to interfere with your timeline. I'm just trying to repair the damage to it and set things back where you don't have a nuclear war. But your government is not going to survive. So it's over. It's over for the United States.
Wow. Well, here's a really good. I said we're going to come to the. Okay. All right. 2 more questions, and then we're going to end this. Okay, folks. I have to go soon. All right. So, Jose is asking about Mexico. Will Mexico be erased too after this war?
Good question.
Mexico, and I knew President Fox. Now, President Fox, I have seen him shapeshift. And I do know that the monuments down there where there were sacrifices, the sacrifices are still going on, but it's late at night. There's secret societies down there. Mexico doesn't come out very well on top of this. They starved like everybody else. This is a worldwide event, okay? It's a great reset. That's the reason they say it, the Great Reset. They no longer need you guys down there. They have robots that's going to take your places. Okay? So, go ahead.
All right, last question. So Pixie's asking, I guess, what are the names of the 5 super states? Do you happen to know that, Jimmy?
No, the one that I was in was down towards Florida with John. You know, it's the only way you can get from one state to the next state. Either you walk or you go on horseback. It's not like you have a road map. It's fractured along river lines and it doesn't look anything like it does now. In fact, it's known as the United Americas, not as the United States.
All right, hold on a second. I was trying to get this picture to show up. I've had him had you on here before, and
I've seen some crude pictures on the internet.
This was from Alex, I think. Alex claimed he was part of the same Temple Recon division as John Titor and that they were friends and so on. But supposedly but you know, this was okay. So the Civil War was supposed to take place like in the early 2000s, and then kind of just played itself out. That's why he says circa 2020. So that timeline didn't happen. But the 5 provinces are or states, I guess, states would have been they're named after farmer military generals that were able to defeat the New World Order.
Hey,
so
Mark, give us a mate.
Foley, Franklin, Jefferson, and Carlisle. And the capital is supposedly New Omaha. And I guess, but you know, and I see Mexico has been dissolved, and I don't know why Alaska got dissolved. According to Daryl James, he says in the future, he doesn't say all your stuff that's happening during, but he does say the Russians take back Alaska. So Alaska's going, and they're going to have to start learning how to speak Russian over in Alaska if you live there. But I don't know.
Well, the 5 super states look similar to that. The lines are a little different. And they're named after college towns like Fort, you know, like you have a college, like, you know, it's named after the colleges are called forts. And because the colleges is where you have all the information at, the libraries and such.
Just is glaring. Hang on.
Okay, so everybody goes back to the libraries or to their colleges, and they start over from there. The names don't look familiar to me. But now I do think that Omaha, there is you know, people in Omaha, they regroup. But it's not the center of anything. The 5 super states are just that. Each state is independent of the other state. So it's not like the United States, it's just United America.
Yeah, I think Canada, but doesn't that get, well, what's left of Canada?
Well,
Is-
the you know, when it comes to Mexico, I kind of see Mexico moving more to the west, come up a little further north to the west there, but Mexico is they're fractured up as well. Um, yeah, it goes back to the rivers and everything. The rivers are the dividing lines, the boundary lines. There's no bridges up, James, where, you know, in other words, if the line, so say the Mississippi River, how the river zigzags left and right, you know, when it comes down the center of the United States.
Right. But eventually doesn't that become a huge separation when the New Madrid Fault goes?
Well, parts of Mississippi and Arkansas and Louisiana is underwater. A lot of it, when the Tennessee Valley Dam, you know, when they built up in Kentucky and Tennessee, you know, they did a lot of damming back in the 40s and 50s. Well, they've been doing it since the 30s. But a lot of those dams burst, and a lot of that water goes south. Now, Mexico, because of the melting of the ice cap, a lot of Mexico's underwater. You know.
And Florida too?
Yeah, Florida is that the part that the leg that sticks out is no longer there. The peninsula there.
So it's basically just like the really center part of Florida, where I think that the altitude there is about 200 foot tall.
Yeah, it just kind of, the part that you see protruding out is underwater there.
So what happens to all those people in like Miami or what, Tampa, all those coastal cities? Are they going to just like, well, I guess my house floated away?
They're not
Where do they go? Where do they go? They just starve to death, I guess.
They starve to death. A lot of them are killed in the war, James. It's kind of, you know, we're looking at a map here that's not exactly all the way correct. It is 5 super states. The names of them are not that. You know what I mean?
All right. Well, anything last you want to share, because we'll go ahead and wrap this up.
Well, I would encourage all of y'all to be spiritual and to prepare for the dollar to collapse. There'd be no electricity to get on the internet, and there'd be no phones. I mean, it's not the end of the world, people. I mean, people survive it. A good many don't, you know. And what'll happen is you'll get up at sunrise and you go into the field and you work from sun up to sundown 7 days a week. There's no air conditioners. There's no medicine. It's a very primitive, it's kind of like a Mad Max world, you know. It's brutal, but people survive. And maybe, hopefully, somebody, you know, an intelligence officer with the military is listening. You need to tell your intelligence officer that if they want to make contact with me, they can make contact with James Rink. James Rink will let me know, and I'll meet privately with the military officers at Nellis Air Force Base. But it'd be done in private.
All right, so go to the description section of this, I guess this link wherever this is going to post. I'm probably going to post this over to Rumbles.
Okay, guys, that was very interesting. I'm going to do more of this channel. You guys are on board with it, so very interesting. I'll do some more of that. Okay, guys, I hang up in a half hour, so I'll finish with a sky watch. I go 3 hours a day usually.
95% of people will speculate. People will put money into the market, hoping and praying that the market goes up to make money. But I'm going to teach you.
World started the official disclosure of UFOs when the government finally admitted publicly their involvement in the research of what they're calling unidentified aerial phenomenon. Now, thousands of UFO sightings are captured every year by people all over the world, and with the use of cell phones, video documentation has never been more broadly available. With millions of people now believing that aliens are the creators of humanity as Christians, how are we supposed to respond to this growing trend? Today's guest is here to explain all of this right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Skywatch TV. I'm Joe Horn. Are you guys thrilled to start week 3 of our special investigation? The last couple of weeks have been unbelievable, and I'm going to introduce to you our special guest because he's back again. He's an Air Force veteran, author, radio show commentator, podcaster, and public speaker. He's the writer of Gen 6 Productions, Mega Drought, and The Lies of Men and Gods. Please welcome Mr. Daniel Holdings. I think we broke TV last week, Derek. We got into the Vatican. We were talking about their seeming, is obsession too strong? And that doesn't go for all people identifying as Catholic. Sure. But we did talk about those in high places of authority and persuasion that absolutely have this fixation with our space brothers, or whatever they would describe these entities to be.
If that show didn't get us canceled, then nothing will.
Oh, yeah. We continue our special series on the brand new film by Steve Quayle, Lies of Men and Gods, Exposing the Fallen Angel Agenda, the Genetic Corruption and Destruction of the Human Race. And we're back again with lead writer and co-producer, Mr. Daniel Holdings. And I want to dive right back into the conversation, as I've teased in the introduction over the last couple of weeks, this moment of alien disclosure. It's something that people have talked about for decades. It's something that people have hypothesized the government knows exactly when is going to happen, or they're picking their sunset date for the big reveal. We've talked about over the last couple of weeks. Now, what is in it for the Vatican? Why do they seem so compelled to stay at the front end of this conversation? Why would they be if these aliens, as we describe them, or demons, as we describe them, are indeed communicating with members of the Vatican? What's in it for them? What is that relationship about? And of course, Tom, you eloquently explained last week that your belief is that they're positioning themselves to be the world authority when disclosure takes place. Is to say, hey, we've been in touch with our space brothers for decades. We're the answer people. We can both provide to you the explanations about what their technology means, because they've been educating us for the last 50 years, 60 years, but also the spiritual side of it. Would they be superior to us? Maybe we should turn to them for answers about where the cosmos began, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, Daniel, you've described this as the great deception. Do you think that we actually will face a moment where we're going to be told that aliens are our creators?
Again, to the title of the movie, it's a lie, and it's already a lie that's being propagated. See, this is the issue. People already believe that aliens are our creators. And let's see, there are 65% of people that believe in God in the United States, but 45% believe in aliens.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the parallel life that we are living right now. The fact that we are living in this world where you see this momentum go. I read an interesting article the other day. It said, can the Christian church ever rebound? Meaning talking about the great falling away. And because we know it's the great falling away, and if you look at scripture, I don't think so. At least not mainstream Christianity, not denomination Christianity. Yeah. Certainly, I think there will be home churches and people looking toward the Lord more than ever in a personal one-on-one relationship. But the idea of religion is going by the wayside. And we talked even before the show, Derek, about the woke religion, how that's religion. Mm-hmm. Here's the point, that pulling away from religion, not God, not the Word of God, right? But pulling away from religion leaves a vacuum. Somebody's got to fill that vacuum.
Absolutely.
How do they do that? They do that with aliens, Tom.
Yes. Well, you know what's interesting is when we came down off of Mount Graham, Joe, and you remember we were contacted by one of the leaders of the Apache Nation, because I had gone on Sid Roth and said they went to a federal lawsuit to try to stop them from building, the observatory on the top of Mount Graham, that they had done that because that was kind of like a burial ground, like a graveyard for the Indians, over the centuries, and they didn't want them up there disturbing their holy ground. Anyway, I said that on Sid Roth. Then I get contacted by a leader of the Apache Nation. He said that part of it is true, as far as what you've said. But he said that's not really the issue. The issue for us is Mount Graham is one of the 4 holiest mountains in the whole world to all American indigenous people. And it is, he said, because it is, in your lingo, he said, you would call it a stargate, a doorway, a portal, through which entities have entered into and exited this 3-dimensional reality since the dawn of time. And then he told me their creation story from the Apache, PhD level. And he's saying that here's how it happened. He said, in the beginning, there was nothing, darkness and void. And literally every part of the Old Testament description of creation is their oldest story of creation, but in their own way of saying it, right? So he said, above the mountain, a doorway opened. And he said, a silvery disc descended down out of heaven. Here's the UFO myth, right? And in it, he said, set a bearded man, which is very interesting given that the Apache don't have facial hair, so why they would have even depicted it that way. But that's more of a biblical narrative, right? A bearded man. He was the creator. He started making all of the good things that are on the world. But then he said, not long after that, the portal opened again, and a serpentine entity came through. And it's claiming that it was the creator. So the origin of the light to, when Lucifer fell, the whole story of who is our creator, who is our God. And then he said after that, they go in their kivas, they start practicing witchcraft. The bowels of the earth burst open and giants come up out from under the surface of the earth and start spreading chaos. Anyway, the story goes on and on. And so the bearded guy, the God of the creator, dealt with those giants by sending a universal flood that went around the world and wiped out all of the reptilian species and all the rest of it. I want to preface this by making sure the audience understands. We've said a lot about the Vatican. It's important because in terms of geopolitical power and authority, they have embassies around the world. They have 90-some representatives from all the nations of the earth that meet at the Vatican. They're the only church in the world that has that kind of power and authority. So they would be the ones naturally at the forefront of this. But I want people to understand, having said all that, we are not anti-Catholic. That's not what we're doing here. No. We're not bashing Catholic Christians. What we're saying is that at the highest levels, to use a Malachi Martin term, of the geopolitics of the Vatican City, they know something, or they think they know something about what is going on. Now, are they making a deal with entities? Is it a Mephistophelian bargain, right? Is there something like that that's going on? Well, watch this. A Catholic priest, an astronomer that works with everybody we've been talking about so far, Kenneth Delano, he wrote in an officially sanctioned Catholic book not long ago, he wrote this, quote, our religious sensitivities ought not to be shocked by the idea that the evolutionary history of the human body might be traced back ultimately to a primordial refuse heap left by visiting ETI, or extraterrestrial intelligence, when Earth was young. So in other words, we were created by the aliens, right? And then he ends it with this flabbergasting statement, quote, no great theological difficulty should present itself if we discover that ETI played an important part in the formation of the human race, end quote. So there you go. And I have dozens of quotes from their highest level academics. They are definitely trying to prepare, at least Catholics, if not others around the world. And you're right. I'll quit talking now, but you're right. As interest in God wanes across the United States, throughout Europe, in the UK, the belief in aliens in particular is growing like crazy. So it's only going to take one event. If they find some artifact on another planet somewhere that's an alien structure.
Oh, Vas, I thought you were saying you stopped watching it because you didn't like it. And I'm thinking, what doesn't he like about this? It's Skywatch and Tom Horn. I misunderstood you.
Of some kind. Or they dig up something out from under the soil here. One event, or ultimately, what you were saying a moment ago, you know, we wake up one morning and we turn on the news, and here in the well of the United Nations is the President of the United States, the President of Britain and Russia, and all the rest of them, the Pope, and maybe even that character out of childhood's End that looks suspiciously like the devil, but we are being sold that that is actually who made us who we are. They are our saviors. And now they're here to correct our understanding of the gospel.
And just to emphasize points that Tom and Daniel both made, this is not about the Vatican or Roman Catholics in general, and it's much worse than what Daniel said. When Josh Peck and I wrote The Day the Earth Stands Still back in 2017, the Barna Group found that even though about 2/3 of Americans say they believe in God, the fact is that only 10% of Americans have a biblical worldview, meaning believing in the basic tenets of Christianity, that God created the universe, that Jesus literally died and rose again from the dead, born of a virgin. Satan is a
only 10% believe that. That's sad.
literal entity and so forth.
10%.
And among those who identify themselves as Christians and say that their faith is important and attend church regularly, only 17% actually have a biblical worldview. The point is, 1/3 of Americans believe that it is likely, somewhat or very likely, that Earth has been visited by extraterrestrial entities, and only 10% have a biblical worldview. There are more of them than there are of us. So the situation's worse than what you even
that
said.
speaks to this whole issue of disclosure. You asked me, I don't know if it was the last show or this show, you asked me if I thought the aliens were going to disclose themselves or if there was going to be a disclosure moment. I think we're just what you said. I think we're going to wake up one day and all of a sudden, in fact, I saw it. And I don't want to get too super spiritual here, but when I was writing my first trilogy, the Lord gave me lots of dreams and visions. And that was one of the things that I saw. He gave me that. All these UFOs appearing over the United Nations, and then the head of the United Nations walking out and greeting them. They disclosed themselves. I don't know if it'll play out exactly like that, but I think that's exactly what will happen, because if we leave it to the military, the governments of the world, they want that technology. They want that power.
Yeah.
If they allow the public to begin to see the kind of information they have, the governments of the world lose their power, and therefore they won't do it because they're trying to hold on to their power. But yeah, I wanted to make a point here. Steve Coyle, producer of the movie, he is so focused at times, and you know him well, Tom, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. When I began to come across some of this information, his eyes grew like saucers, and he said, "Wait a minute, that needs to go to the movie." I know, that's why I'm talking to you about it. But one of the things that you mentioned, a name that you mentioned, was Corrado Balducci. Corrado Balducci was a good friend of Zacharias Sitchin.
Yes.
There you go.
So in the beginning, you saw the Vatican and Zacharias Sitchin at opposing odds of their belief system in aliens. Because if you know anything about Zacharias Sitchin, he wrote The 12th Planet and other books, but he believed that the Anunnaki lived on planet Nibiru and that they would come around in our sphere of influence, our polar orbit, every 3,600 years. And so what he tried to do is to convince the Vatican of this. The Vatican said, no, that's not the case. Along comes Corrado Balducci, who becomes friends. They begin to trade artifacts. They begin to trade information. Lo and behold, eventually the Vatican, to your point, 100% convinced that that is in fact the case. Now, how do we know this? Because we have on camera a good friend of Zacharias Sitchin before he died that talks about Zacharias Sitchin's belief and how he converted the Vatican into believing about aliens. So, as strange as this story can get, his name was Mario Firamonti. And Mario Firamonti actually said some other wild things, and we'll disclose it here in just a second. But the idea that aliens are our creators was something that came not necessarily from Balducci. It was from Zacharias Sitchin, who, by the way, now this is crazy, right? He was writing his first book. It came out in 1973, and he was frustrated because he supposedly interpreted Sumerian tablets, the 13 tablets of Enki, and the Hebrew out of Genesis 6, and came to the conclusion of the Anunnaki. But scholars at that time didn't agree with him. In fact, they refused to believe him. So he was so frustrated. He's writing the manuscript of his first book, and in his own words, in frustration one night, he sits back and he says this. Now, this says it chills down my spine as I'm beginning to relate this to you.
Mm-hmm.
He says this. He says, Nephilim, if you exist, please tell me what is Nibiru. Now, tell me, what is Nephilim?
Yeah, the spirits, at least, of the giants of the Old Testament.
Well, actually, the fallen angels. They are fallen angels. He's asking the fallen angels, the aliens, to disclose themselves.
Mhm.
That's crazy. So this is the guy that convinced the Vatican that there are aliens and they are our creators.
And he himself was first deceived before some of the Vatican was, because he started reaching out to these illegal entities. And they responded by opening his mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the demons go where they are invited, right?
Yeah.
And
I'm looking at Sitchin's website right here, where he recounts the conversations that he's had with Monsignor Balducci, and how Balducci said, well, the Anunnaki maybe were carrying out God's will in bringing spirit to humanity. Like, okay, that's kind of exactly the opposite of what the Bible tells us about these entities, because as our good friend Dr. Michael Heiser points out on his website, SitchinIsWrong.com. I highly encourage you to either Mr. Sitchin, God bless him, because he now knows the truth. He has since passed on. Either Mr. Sitchin could not read Sumerian, or he was deceived, or was deceiving, because his interpretation does not match what is actually on those tablets. And yet he has managed to convince some very influential people that these entities, who we know with the Divine Council worldview that Dr. Heiser has taught us, were actual entities, but these would be the fallen angels that Psalm 82 says are under a death sentence. Though you are gods, all of you, sons of the Most High, like men, you shall die.
Right.
Donna, you know the word really well. Give me the verse from that Paul said about doctrines of demons, understanding or listening to doctrines.
The fact that you cannot drink from both at the same time. Yeah, you cannot have the doctrines of demons and the true Christian doctrine. You cannot drink from both at the same time.
Joe, that's exactly what we're looking at right here.
Right.
This whole thing that Tom uncovered, 10 years ago, 12 years ago with Exo Vaticana, we are looking at the doctrines of demons and infiltrating the Vatican, and that Vatican making a means by which those demons or those fallen angels can come and basically take over the world. It is the lies of men and gods. It really is.
Wow. We're talking about lies of men and gods, and we want to make sure that you know how you can get your copy. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
There is a huge web of deception.
Okay, let's jump ahead for the ads.
Welcome back to Skywatch TV. I'm Joe Horn. We're in studio today with lead writer and co-producer of the film Lies of Men and Gods, Daniel Holdings. And Daniel, right before the break, you did such a beautiful job kind of encapsulating all the commentaries that Derek and Tom had put forth on this whole topic of the Vatican, ET disclosure, the timing of that. We did a lot of speculating, but you did mention Zachariah Sitchin's friend, Mario Faramonte, if I'm saying that correctly. And there's something more there that you wanted to reveal.
But okay, so let's go back and answer this question. Why is the Vatican going down the road that they're going? What is this belief system? You asked the question earlier, what's in it for them, right? Why are they going through? Do they get first dibs when the world's taken over by aliens, or the case may be? It's much, much deeper than that. And it has to do with a supernatural belief, a spiritual belief that is not biblical, by the way. As I mentioned, we interviewed Leo Zagami and Mario Faramonte. Mario Faramonte was a friend of Zachariah Sitchin's of 40 years. And so we had the opportunity, actually Leo brought Mario to the interview to answer some of these questions about Sitchin. Folks, you got to hear me. Remember I said that this movie caused Steve Quayle and I to look back and say how literal the Bible was.
Yes.
That Satan is the God of this world. That the whole world lies in the hands of the evil one. Now, okay, is that super spiritual, or is it ethereal?
Yeah, like a metaphor or reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what Faramonte said is that Sitchin believed that one of those Anunnaki was living in planet Earth, underneath the Earth, and that his name was Lucifer, and that he was the head Anunnaki, and that he ruled this planet. Now, here's the interesting thing. So if you go back to Ephesians 6, verse 12, we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but with the principalities, powers, and forces of wickedness. You look at that word, forces of wickedness, it literally means, in the Greek, ruler of this world. This is not ethereal. This is not, hyperbole. This is real. Now, Tom, does that make more sense? Why, if the Vatican is in cahoots and they've come to this belief in the Anunnaki and Nibiru or whatever's coming, does that make more sense why they would name this infrared device the Lucifer device?
Yeah, well, and all through the Bible, I mean, Jesus spoke about this, the Apostle Paul spoke about this, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest they should receive the glorious gospel of Christ and be saved. So there is a war. He is called in numerous places the God of this world. And in fact, when Jesus doesn't deny when he takes him up onto the Mount of Temptation, and he says, see all of this, all these nations and the worlds and the cities and the glory of them, I will give it all to you, for it is given to me, and it is my power to whom I will give it, if you will just bow down and worship me. Jesus didn't do that. He corrects him with scripture and rebukes him and all that, but he didn't deny that he is the God of this world, and to whom he will give it, right? So at the highest levels of, even I'm sorry, folks, even the United States government, there is supernaturalism that is operating behind the scenes.
Yeah, there is.
And there are stages in those categories: principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places, cosmocrators. Even Heiser noted this in his book Unseen Realm, that this is referring to entities that exist and work in and behind human political counterparts. It is their job to steer nations, especially powerful ones, away from God. And that's what the God of this world is doing. So, and you do talk about this quite a bit in the film, and I really enjoyed that part of the film. It was informative to me about Sitchin's connection to Lucifer as the head Anunnaki, right? And so if they're coming back on this floating planet Nibiru, is that what Malachi Martin was referring to? They're studying something in deep space?
I think that there's another possible interpretation here. Nibiru is just an alternate way of transliterating into English the ancient Sumerian name Nippur. Nippur was the city that was sacred to the chief god of Mesopotamia, Enlil, who by the time of Abraham had been demoted with the Anunnaki from being the chief gods of Sumer to gods or judges of the underworld. I argued in the book, The Second Coming of Saturn, that god Enlil, also called El, Dagon, Molech by the Hebrews, Saturn, Kronos, is this entity, Lucifer. That Lucifer, in other words, is this entity, not Satan. Satan still roams the earth seeking about, whom he may devour. Whereas this entity, like the sinning angels mentioned by Peter and Jude, is locked away in the netherworld. So if he's looking at Lucifer in Nibiru, he's looking for Enlil from Nippur, the chief god of Mesopotamia, who I argued in that book is Apollyon or Abaddon, the destroyer who comes out in Revelation chapter 9. He's coming back, but they're not going to like it when he does.
And the fact that what you were saying about Sitchin, he's the chief Anunnaki and he lives beneath the surface of the earth. That is exactly where your studies went to as well. Revelation chapter 9, all the rest of it, right? That an angel descends down out of heaven with a key to the bottomless pit, and he opens it up, and then all Hades breaks loose.
The king over those in the bottomless pit, right?
So I know you're almost out of time, but this last point, let's make a left turn. The Great Reset that's coming, all of these things that are coming together, famine, economic collapse, the killing off of millions with stuff, right? If that is true, is that being driven by this Lucifer who controls this planet? The lies of God and men.
Amen.
Now, Daniel, we're not going to have time to get into a lot of this today, but I do want to kind of pre-tease next week. A couple of weeks ago, you talked about these artifacts that you and Steve Quayle and your team went out and uncovered in Mexico. But you also allege in the film, for the viewers at home, that there is an Egyptian connection to those artifacts in Mexico, and that this is very significant. Give us just a sample of what we're going to be talking about next week.
Well, everyone knows the childhood poem. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. It is not the truth. Because how did Egyptian artifacts mingling with Aztecs and Mayans end up in Mexico long before that, thousands of years before that?
Right.
Another lie of gods and men.
And we're going to deal with that next week, as well as talk about possible evidence from antiquity that points towards the DNA manipulation of human beings. It's not one you're going to want to miss. Unfortunately, we're all out of time once again, so we'll have to come back. For everybody here in the studio audience, everybody on panel, Daniel, thank you so much.
Okay, guys, I'm out. That Super Soldier channel is very interesting. I'm going to play a bit more of their stuff, unless they go crazy. But so far, they made a lot of sense. Very interesting. Okay, guys, God bless. See you tomorrow.